Chapter 1588. Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Yuan Xiaoman also nodded. When she first saw Di Beichen, she already felt that Di Beichen was a very charming man. Although there were many men in the world, a man like Di Beichen who could be noticed at a glance was really rare. When she didn't know Di Beichen's identity, she already felt that Di Beichen was a very charming man, not to mention that Di Beichen was the young sect master of Tiangang sect. With all these added up, there were only a few men like Di Beichen in the entire Xingxian continent. Yuan Xiaoman couldn't help but look at Bailey Hongzhuang. Fortunately, Boss was also good enough. The two of them together were really a match made in heaven. Yuan Jixin's gaze towards Bailey Hongzhuang also changed a bit. If he didn't understand it before, now he finally understood why Boss had been working so hard. Not to mention women, even men would feel ashamed of their inferiority to Boss's fighting spirit. Now it seemed that the pressure on Boss was much greater than them. The Yuan family was also a big family in the Snow Country. It was very difficult for ordinary people to marry into the Yuan family, let alone Boss becoming the young sect master of Tiangang sect. There weren't so many fairy tales in this world. How many lovers were broken up like this? However, in his view, although Boss's background couldn't be compared with Di Beichen, Boss's potential and strength were not bad. In the past 2 years, Boss's progress was enough to shock people. Among all the cultivators who participated in the assessment, there were very few who could compare with Boss in terms of improvement. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, on the high platform, Gu Taihong's speech continued. I believe that everyone has an understanding of the rules of the assessment. Everything is determined by your points. The top 100 can enter the top 10 sects, and the top 10 can freely choose which sect to enter. With Gu Taihong's voice, everyone's eyes lit up again. They were also curious about their final results. Since everyone has gathered in this central square, then let us witness your results in the past 2 years. Gu Taihong's right hand slightly raised, and everyone's eyes fell on the huge and thick list of the top 100. In the next moment, the representatives of the major sects stood up, and the Yuan Li in their body surged out in an instant, turning into a ray of light that shot towards the top of the pillar. The representatives of the top 10 sects shot out 10 rays of light from their hands and fell on the top 100 list together. Suddenly, a bright light shone from the top 100 list, illuminating the whole world. Di Beichen and the others retracted their elemental power, and their eyes fell on the top 100 list. In the next moment, under everyone's gaze, red words slowly appeared at the bottom of the top 100 rankings. 100th place, Zhao Xingwen. As Gu Taihong's voice rang out, a voice of ecstasy came from the crowd. Ah! It's me! It's me! I to the top 100 list. Looking at Zhao Xingwen, who was almost crazy with excitement, everyone couldn't help but feel envious. Although Zhao Xingwen was only the last in the top 100 list, it was enough of an honor. How many cultivators participated in the assessment? To be able to enter the top 100 list of the assessment was proof of one's strength. Chapter 1589. After the 100th name appeared, the name of the 99th cultivator also appeared in everyone's sight. Every time Gu Taihong said a name, there would be a sound of surprise from the crowd. There was also a nervous look in the eyes of the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty. They did not know what their final results would be. After all, this was related to their future. They heard what Gu Taihong said clearly. Only those who entered the top 100 were eligible to enter the Tiangang sect. If they did not become a member of the top 100, even if they were Di Beichen's friends, they still could not enter the Tiangang sect. Because the Tiangang sect was a sect with strict rules, cultivators who did not have enough strength could not enter at all. Di Beichen, as the young sect master of the Tiangang sect, naturally could not break the rules of his own sect. As Gu Taihong said more and more names, the atmosphere at the scene became more and more tense, which meant that they had fewer chances. Xia Jiqing and others also had a nervous look on their faces. Until now, their names had not appeared. Could it be that their points were not enough? This possibility was not impossible. After all, the number of cultivators participating in the assessment competition was terrifying. It was extremely difficult to be in the top 100. With so many cultivators present, the competition was naturally very fierce. They originally thought that their points were already a lot, but until now, they had not heard their names. They could not help but feel nervous. 50th place, Yuan Xiaoman. Gu Taihong's voice sounded again, but this voice was no different from the sound of nature for the cultivators of the Tiangang sect. They had not heard their names, so they only thought that their points were too little. They did not expect that their rankings were very good. Yuan Xiaoman was the person with the lowest points in their team. Part of the reason was that Yuan Xiaoman joined the Tiangang dynasty team later. Previously, she did not get many points when she was with the cultivators of the Snow Origin dynasty, so she was the person with the lowest points among the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty. It's me, it's me. My name. Yuan Xiaoman excitedly took Bai Junyu's hand, and her pretty face was full of excitement and excitement. From the day she participated in the assessment competition, she hoped that she could succeed and become a member of the sect. As for the fear of being ranked in the top 100, that was something she didn't even dare to say out loud. This was because she was worried that she would be ridiculed for overestimating herself if she spoke of this idea. She never thought that she would actually become a member of the top 100. Suddenly being grabbed by Yuan Xiaoman, Bai Junyu was also stunned for a moment. He looked at Yuan Xiaoman in surprise, and his expression revealed a bit of embarrassment. Yuan Xiaoman was also stunned after noticing Bai Junyu's gaze. She immediately let go of Bai Junyu's hand and looked to the other side in embarrassment. She was just immersed in her excitement and forgot about this matter. When Yuan Jixin saw this scene, he couldn't help but smile. His sister had always been carefree, and now she was so complacent that she would do such a thing. However, in his opinion, if Yuan Xiaoman could be together with Bai Junyu, it would be an excellent choice. Chapter 1590. Xia Jiqing's eyes looked between Bai Junyu and Yuan Xiaoman. Her expression could not help but become complicated, and there was a trace of hurt in the depths of her eyes. The original joy of being on the list seemed to have disappeared in this short moment, and an unspeakable sadness and loneliness spread in her heart. Yuan Xiaoman held Bai Junyu's hand, and this scene kept appearing in her mind. Her heart was unspeakably uncomfortable. Gong Shaoqing and the others also fell into silence. They did not expect such a scene to suddenly happen. It was really unexpected. Speaking of this, the relationship between Bai Junyu, Xia Jiqing and Yuan Xiaoman, they really did not know what to do. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were also looking at Bai Junyu and the other two. She always knew that Bai Junyu liked Xia Jiqing, but she did not expect that they had not come together in 2 years, and the situation had become so complicated. Now she also knew that Yuan Xiaoman also liked Bai Junyu. If this relationship was not determined quickly, the three of them would be hurt if it continued. If she did not see it, the person in Bai Junyu's heart should still be Jiqing. However, although Jiqing's character was very lively, she was extremely shy in the face of feelings and had never shown it. Although the hurt in Jiqing's eyes just now was hidden from many people, it did not escape her eyes. Just this point alone, she could be sure that Jiqing had Bai Junyu in her heart. Thinking of this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes could not help but fall on Bai Junyu. She already understood the feelings between Jiqing and Xiaoman. The most important thing now was Bai Junyu's thoughts. After leaving the small world, she had to find a time to ask Bai Junyu, or find other men to help her ask for his opinion. Whether it was Xia Jiqing or Yuan Xiaoman, they were all her good sisters. She did not want any of them to be hurt. If one of them was destined to be hurt, it was better to hurt sooner rather than later. If this problem was solved early, they could be closer to happiness. Although there was an idea in her heart, Bailey Hongzhuang did not show it on her face. She just smiled and said, "It seems that our results are very good." The slightly embarrassed anger suddenly became active with Bailey Hongzhuang's words. "Yeah, Xiao Man is ranked 50th, then everyone's ranking should be higher." Yuan Jixin couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. Now that he was on the top 100, not only would his future be bright, even his family would be honored. As long as one cultivator from the family became a member of the sect, the family would be able to obtain abundant cultivation resources, making the family even more powerful. He now felt that the reason why he and Xiao Man could reach this step was because of Yuan Hongyang and Yuan Liqing. If they didn't get to know boss, they wouldn't have gotten to know boss during the assessment. In that case, not to mention becoming a cultivator on the top 100 list, whether or not they could walk out of the battlefield alive would be a problem. But now, he and Xiao Man's future was filled with infinite hope. Dongfang Yu chuckled, "Our harvest this time is really not small, 45th place, Yuan Jixin." As everyone was talking, Yuan Jixin's name sounded out from the high platform. Yuan Jixin couldn't hide the excitement in his eyes. To him, this ranking was a great surprise. Chapter 1591. 30th place, Xia Jiqing. 29th place, Bai Junyu. 28th place, Dongfang Yu. 27th place, Gong Xiaoqing. Under the astonished gazes of the cultivators, the names of Xia Jiqing and the others rang out one after another. The cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty had always been famous in the assessment competition. On one hand, it was because of their strength. On the other hand, it was because they were only cultivators of a medium-sized dynasty but they were able to achieve such results. Regardless of prejudice, everyone had to admit that the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty were really powerful. How many medium-sized dynasty teams were participating in the assessment competition? But to be able to achieve such results, there was no other team other than the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty. Just this point alone had proven their strength because they could do what others couldn't. The cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty are going against the heavens. A team of a medium-sized dynasty has such a strong score. The worst one is already 50th place. This result is simply shocking. Yes, this means that all the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty are on the top 100 list. In the history of the assessment competition, I'm afraid that such a situation has only happened a few times. Isn't that so? Even for large dynasty teams, there are very few cultivators in the entire team who can climb the top 100 list. The cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty are really going to be famous this time. I really envy Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman. They only joined the Tiangang dynasty team later. Why didn't I join the team at the beginning? Otherwise, wouldn't my name be on the top 100 list now? The cultivators were all regretful. They were not envious of the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty team, but the cultivators who joined halfway made them envious. Who made them not have such good luck? However, before this, none of them knew that the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty were so abnormal. It's strange. Why are the names of the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty so closely together? Could it be that their points are about the same? Aren't the four people who are connected together originally cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty? Maybe their points are evenly distributed. When a cultivator guessed this point, the group of cultivators was dumbfounded. If it was really like this, then this Heavenly Dipper dynasty's team was truly too domineering. Everyone knew that even cultivators in the same team would usually be calculative. As for the matter of sharing points, it was simply impossible. This was because everyone had their own selfish motives. However, the points of Xia Jiqing and the others clearly proved this point. If it wasn't for the points, the results wouldn't be so close. For a time, everyone's envy of the Tiangang dynasty cultivators deepened. Perhaps it was because they couldn't do it that they were even more envious. How are Bailey Hongzhuang's results? Maybe Bailey Hongzhuang is 26th. Bailey Hongzhuang is so powerful, I believe that her ranking is not only 26th, basically, every team's captain had the highest points. This was an indisputable fact. If his teammates could all reach the top 20, he believed that the captain's ranking would definitely reach the top 10. When they thought of this ranking, everyone was even more surprised. Chapter 1592. Compared to the envy of the cultivators, Xia Jiqing and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with some worry. For them, they were already very happy to have such a ranking. However, for Bailey Hongzhuang, such a ranking was not enough. Because only the top 10 cultivators on the list could have the opportunity to choose their own sect, the other cultivators could only draw lots to decide. Boss wanted to prove her strength to the cultivators of Tiangang's sect, so she needed to get into the top 10. With the character of Han Hongyi, that old fox, as long as Boss did not get such results, he would definitely find a way to find fault. They all knew that Hongzhuang's points were higher than theirs, because of the existence of the three beasts, Hongzhuang's points were naturally higher. However, there was a limit to the points. At most, she could get into the top 10. It was very difficult to get into the top 10. What should they do? Xia Jiqing and the others could not help but frown. If they had known earlier, they would have given some of their points to Hongzhuang. In this way, Hongzhuang's ranking could be higher, and the obstacles in the future would be reduced. Gu Taihong was still reading the names, and as everyone expected, the 26th place was not Bailey Hongzhuang. Xia Jiqing stood beside Bailey Hongzhuang, her pretty face showing a bit of anxiety. She wanted to speak but did not know what to say. After all, in this situation, no matter what she said, it was useless. Because it was too late. Feeling everyone's concerned eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly, and there was a bit of a reassuring taste in her smile. She could not help but think of Mo Yunjue in her mind. As Mo Yunjue said, her points were indeed not enough. Along the way, except for the cultivators who came to find trouble with her, she robbed their points. The rest of her points were obtained by hunting beasts. Therefore, their points could not be compared with those who robbed the cultivators' points. Everything Mo Yunjue said was right. It was because of this that Mo Yunjue gave her the points. These points were not only a form of help to her, but also a form of deep affection. So many points were completely beyond her expectations. She felt that it was very likely that these points were not Mo Yunjue's alone, but the points of the entire Qian Feng dynasty. Only in this way could there be so many points, so many that it was a bit amazing. Everyone was relieved after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's calm look. Hongzhuang had already been mentally prepared, so they did not need to worry. However, the next scene made Xia Jiqing and the others surprised. Because Gu Taihong had already read the names of the cultivators who were ranked in the top 10, but he had not read the name of Bailey Hongzhuang. Didn't this mean that Bailey Hongzhuang was in the top 10? Thinking of this, the faces of Xia Jiqing and the others all showed a light of excitement. As long as Hongzhuang could enter the top 10, then the resistance would undoubtedly be reduced a lot. After hearing the results of Xia Jiqing and the others, He Mu could not help but show a happy smile on his face. Young master, young madam's friends have good results. Before, he was worried that the results of the young madam's group would not be good. After all, he also knew the difficulty of the assessment competition. It was not an easy thing to climb to the top 100. Chapter 1593. Di Baiqian's deep starry eyes were filled with a slight smile. His Hongzhuang was really extraordinary. In such a dangerous situation, not only was she safe, but she also got such a good result. It was really amazing. He knew that his Hongzhuang had always been a great person. It seemed that in the past 2 years, a lot of things had happened to Hongzhuang. He was very clear about the strength of Gong Xiaoqing and the others. If there were no special opportunities, with their previous strength and talent, it would not be enough to get such a result. He was almost certain that they must have experienced something special and obtained a fortuitous encounter. I don't know how young madam's results are. He Mu's face was full of expectations. Xia Jiqing and the others could get such results, presumably young madam's results would be better. Di Beichen's lips evoked a happy smile. With the current situation, he could already conclude that Hong Zhuang's results would not be bad. However, as Gu Taihong read out the names one by one, when only the top 10 names were not read out, He Mu could not help but frown. This situation seemed a bit strange. Young master, why haven't I heard Miss Han's name yet? It was reasonable to say that among the cultivators who represented Tiangang's sect to participate in the assessment, the results of Xia Jiqing and the others were undoubtedly relatively low, and the results of Wu Yuexin and the others were more beneficial. Now there were only 10 places left. Miss Han could appear in these 10 places, but Wu Yuexin and the others should not. It was just that they had not heard their names in the top 100. Were their results very bad this time? Hearing He Mu's words, Di Beichen's expression could not help but change a bit. The dark and deep eyes became deeper, like the sea of the night, deep and boundless, making people unable to see through them. Seeing that Di Beichen did not speak, He Mu also closed his mouth. In fact, the young master was very polite to Miss Han before, but after Miss Han made trouble again and again, the young master changed his attitude. Speaking of which, he also felt that Miss Han was too much. He already knew that Miss Han had come to participate in the assessment this time to deal with young madam. It was precisely because of this that young master had been so worried for the past 2 years. He was worried that young madam would be in danger. I'm afraid that young master no longer has any feelings for Miss Han, only disgust and disdain. To be honest, he also hated Miss Han's bossy manner. She was usually very considerate in front of young sect master, but he had personally witnessed Miss Han's prowess. Thus, he had never wished for Miss Han to become the young madam. In comparison, the current young madam was much better. At least, everything young madam did was very sincere. Di Beichen scanned the crowd, but he didn't find Han Xiling. To him, Han Xiling was not as special as Hong Zhuang, whom he could see at a glance. However, he was also certain that Han Xiling was not among them. He and Han Xiling grew up together, so he knew Han Xiling's character very well. If Han Xiling was really among the crowd, then under such circumstances, she would have already walked in front of him. Because she had always been a girl who liked to be in the limelight. Chapter 1594. Han Xiling was not in the crowd. When Di Beichen realized this, he already understood in his heart. At this moment, all the cultivators were gathered in the central square. Han Xiling was not there, which meant that Han Xiling was no longer in the assessment. In other words, Han Xiling was dead. Although he did not see it with his own eyes, Di Beichen had already concluded the result in his heart. As for who killed Han Xiling, he did not care. He once gave Han Xiling a chance. As long as she could stop doing useless things, she would still be a very famous woman in Tiangang sect. However, Han Xiling was not willing and even chased Hong Zhuang to the assessment. For such a result, he had also guessed it. His heart was full of sighs and regret, but such a result was chosen by Han Xiling herself. Now that things had come to this point, it was time for the first elder to stop. At this point, Di Beichen no longer thought about it. Perhaps all of this was destined. 10th place, Cheng Hefeng. 9th place, as Gu Taihong read the names one by one, the weight of the top 10 cultivators and the bottom 90 cultivators had a big gap. The assessment was a gathering of geniuses. To be able to stand out among so many cultivators, this proved that they were geniuses among geniuses. 3rd place, Xiang Kongwen. When Gu Taihong read the 3rd place, Bailey Hongzhuang's name was still not read out. Xia Jiqing and the others could not help but be dumbfounded. Hongzhuang's points were higher than theirs, which proved that Hongzhuang's ranking was absolutely not lower than theirs. However, the third place was not Bailey Hongzhuang. Didn't that mean that Bailey Hongzhuang was either second or first place? When they thought of this, their hearts could not help but be excited. Who would have thought that Hongzhuang would get such a good result? Wasn't this a little too shocking? Oh my God, boss actually has such good results. He's really going to be famous now. Xia Jiqing couldn't hide the excitement on her face. What a great result. That old man Han Hongyi can't find any fault with him anymore. Such a result is already the best proof of his strength. Bai Junyu heaved a sigh of relief. It seemed that the situation was much better than they had imagined. Even if that Han Xiling is still alive, her ranking will never be higher than boss. Yuan Xiaoman said with a smile. However, just as Xia Jiqing and the others were rejoicing, Dong Xiaoqing could not help but frown. Why haven't I heard Mo Yinjue's name yet? Although Mo Yinjue had joined their team later on, they believed that with Mo Yinjue's strength, his points would definitely not be small. But even so, he still hadn't heard Mo Yinjue's name. This was a little strange. Could it be that Mo Yinjue is second or first place? Dong Fangyu pondered. He always felt that Mo Yinjue's departure was a little strange. Not only the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty, but Cheng Hefeng and the others' eyes also fell on Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Until now, Bailey Hongzhuang's name had not been read, but they were already certain that Bailey Hongzhuang was either second or first place. Such a result was enough to make every cultivator present envious. Chapter 1595. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang got Fang Wenqing's points, it should not be enough for her to get such a ranking. Because, the higher the ranking, the greater the gap between the points. What's more, there was still Mo Yinjue. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang and Mo Yinjue took the first and second place? Thinking of this possibility, Cheng Hefeng and Yu Junfei could not help but take a breath of cold air. If it was really such a result, then the results of the Tiangang dynasty were too heaven-defying. Second place, Gu Jianzhong. Along with Gu Taihong's voice, everyone only saw that on the list, a name that was a bit bigger than the cultivators below clearly appeared. A cheer broke out in the crowd, and the cultivators in Gu Jianzhong's team were all overjoyed. Such a result, no matter when, was a testimony of strength. However, Gu Jianzhong was not so happy. He thought that his points would be first, but he did not expect that there would be someone who had more points than him. Hearing Gu Jianzhong's name, the cultivators of the Tiangang dynasty could not help but be dumbfounded. Why is there no Mo Yinjue's name? Did we miss it? Xia Jiqing could not help but wonder. This was too strange. Mo Yinjue's points should be higher than theirs. Now there is only one first place left. Dong Xiaoqing's expression was a bit complicated. This situation made them somewhat unable to understand. This proved that the last name was either Bailey Hongzhuang or Mo Yinjue. After seeing everyone's incredulous look, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, Mo Yinjue gave his points to me. As soon as these words came out, Xia Jiqing and the others were dumbfounded. Pairs of eyes looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in surprise, only wondering if they had heard wrongly. Boss, Missouri Yinjue gave his points to you. Then he. Xia Jiqing did not say the following words, but everyone already understood. If Mo Yinjue gave his points to Bailey Hongzhuang, didn't that mean that Mo Yinjue would not have any ranking? Why did Mo Yinjue do this? Why did Mo Yinjue suddenly leave? For a moment, everyone only felt that they could not understand. With their understanding of Hongzhuang, it was absolutely impossible for her to take Mo Yinjue's points. Then there was only one possibility, Mo Yinjue voluntarily gave it to her. As everyone knew, cultivators came to participate in the assessment competition in order to obtain the qualifications to enter a sect. Mo Yinjue had even given up on the points. Did that mean he didn't plan to enter a sect at all? If he did not intend to enter the sect, then why would Mo Yinjue participate in the assessment competition? Everyone was at a loss. This really gave them quite a shock. They had been with Mo Yinjue for so long, but they had never heard Mo Yinjue talk about this. Facing everyone's surprised eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, "He doesn't need it." With Mo Yinjue's identity, he did not need such a ranking and points, so he gave all his points to her in order to ensure that she could get first place. Even if she did not know how many points the second place had, she could predict that the second place's points would be very different from hers. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the doubts in Xia Jiqing and the others' eyes did not dissipate, but became more intense. Why did Mo Yinjue not need it? Chapter 1596. First place, Bailey Hongzhuang. When Gu Taihong read this name, his voice was obviously louder. The first place of the top 100 rankings had always been an extraordinary existence. In the past, the first place of the top 100 rankings were mostly men. There were very few women who obtained first place. Moreover, Gu Taihong was very familiar with this name. Wasn't this the young palace master who the palace master ordered him to find? Originally, he was very puzzled about the young palace master's results in the assessment competition. He didn't expect the young palace master to be the first place of the assessment competition. Even if he felt that the young palace master's results should be good, this first place still surprised him. Sure enough, the palace master's vision had always been excellent. Everyone didn't know that Gu Taihong raised his voice because he was too happy. They only thought that the weight of this first place was different, so there was such a performance. In the next moment, under everyone's shocked eyes, a bright golden light appeared at the top of the top 100 rankings. This font was far larger than the other rankings. This different color suddenly became the brightest color, making people unable to ignore it. The eyes of the entire Central Plaza's cultivators were focused on Bailey Hongzhuang. First place. Bailey Hongzhuang was actually first place. Everyone had long known that the strength of the Tiangang dynasty's cultivators was not simple, but they didn't expect Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to obtain first place. This result was too shocking. My God, the Tiangang dynasty's first place is actually Bailey Hongzhuang. This is a bit too shocking. This time, the Tiangang dynasty is really going to be popular. With such a ranking, Bailey Hongzhuang can't be mentioned in the same breath in the future. Look, the eyes of all the sect elders have landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. I'm afraid Bailey Hongzhuang will become the target of the sect elders. The value of the first place of the assessment competition was far from what other cultivators could compare to. The first place of every assessment competition was the target of recruitment by the sect. Being able to recruit the first place was also beneficial to the sect. Dark horse. This word appeared in the minds of all the cultivators. The performance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could only be described as a dark horse. Darkwood was also dumbfounded. He had never thought that young madam would win the first place. This result was really not an ordinary good result. Before the assessment competition ended, who would have thought that young madam would achieve such results? I'm afraid even young master didn't think of this, right? Hei Mu's heart was filled with joy. At this moment, the first elder and the rest could no longer find any flaws. Young madam not only used her results to prove her qualifications to enter Tiangang's sect, but also proved her extraordinary strength and talent. When Di Beichen found out about Bailey Hongzhuang's results, his deep eyes were filled with astonishment and surprise. His Hongzhuang had always made him so proud. As the results of the top 100 rankings were revealed, the elders of the various sects could not help but discuss among themselves. Others did not know how many points were, but they knew. After seeing the difference between Bailey Hongzhuang and the second place, they could not help but be dumbfounded. This was simply a huge chasm. They had organized so many assessment competitions and had never seen such a high number of points. Bailey Hongzhuang's points were simply too exaggerated. Chapter 1597. This Bailey Hongzhuang is really not simple. The number of points she has is really amazing. She is the cultivator with the highest points in the assessment competition. It seems that her strength and talent are also not simple. If she is trained well, she will become a great talent in the future. For the elders of the various sects, they did not care how Bailey Hongzhuang obtained her points. In their eyes, as long as they could get points, it was their ability. If it was obtained by hunting monsters, then it was what the cultivator deserved, and it also helped them solve a lot of problems. If it was obtained by plundering, then it proved that the strength of the cultivator was strong enough, because she could snatch the points from so many cultivators and still live until now. For a time, the elders were constantly calculating in their hearts. No matter what, this Bailey Hongzhuang, they must find ways to recruit her. This was a rare genius that was hard to come by in 100 years. If they missed it like this, they were afraid that they would inevitably be reprimanded by the sect master when they returned to the sect. The number of disciples recruited by the major sects was not many, but for the top cultivators, the competition between them was also very fierce. After all, if the sect had one more excellent disciple, their strength would increase a bit, and if their opponents had one more excellent disciple, their pressure would increase a bit, which was not a good thing. "Boss, it's great," Xia Jiqing said excitedly. Although she did not know why Mo Yunjue made such a decision and left, but the boss got such a result, this was really a happy thing. First place. This time, the people of Tiangang's sect can no longer find any reason. Everyone's eyes are different, this feeling is really cool. Yuan Xiaoman said excitedly. Now that the assessment competition was over, there was no longer a competitive relationship between the cultivators, so there was less targeting and more envy. After knowing the results of the boss, they really breathed a sigh of relief and no longer needed to worry about this problem. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, and her eyes condensed on Di Beichen on the high platform. No matter what, at least the gap between them had narrowed a little. At the very least, when she stood beside Di Beichen, no one would say that she relied on seductive means to gain Di Beichen's favor. For the man she loved deeply, she only hoped that she could become more outstanding and powerful as soon as possible. In 2 years, she had improved a lot, but she also knew that Di Beichen had improved a lot as well. But at least, she had closed the gap between them a little. In the distance, after Mo Yunjue saw that Bailey Hongzhuang had obtained first place, a warm and happy smile appeared on his usually calm face. The distance between Hongzhuang and Di Beichen narrowed again. Even though there was an indescribable pain in his heart, he was still happy for Hongzhuang. For a guy like him, he had almost forgotten what it felt like to be happy. However, in the past year or so, he had once again experienced the feeling of happiness. Now, he only hoped that Hongzhuang was happy, and that was enough. The assessment competition was over, and he should return to the darkness. He used to be confident that he would see Hongzhuang again, but after Hongzhuang went to Tiangang's sect, he could not guarantee that he would meet her again. Chapter 1598. Following the announcement of the top 100 rankings, the cultivators in the central square burst into an uproar. Everyone was talking about this matter, and it didn't stop for a while. The elders on the high platform also understood everyone's emotions. Hence, they were not in a hurry to continue speaking and gave the cultivators some time. Yun family's elder looked at the top 100 rankings and could not help but have doubts in his eyes. Why didn't he see Han Shiling's name on the top 100 rankings? With Han Shiling's strength, participating in this assessment competition should not be bad. Could it be? Han Xiling deliberately did not ask for the results. Yun family's elder kept thinking in his mind. This possibility was not impossible. Many times, some cultivators who were originally from a sect would do so. On one hand, it was because they did not need to occupy such a place. On the other hand, it was because with their strength, if the ranking was not high enough, it would undoubtedly be a loss of face. After pausing for a moment, Gu Taihong's voice rang out once again. Since the results of the top 100 rankings have been announced, then the top 10 cultivators can start to choose the sect you want to enter. Before that, we will objectively introduce the 10 great sects so that everyone can have a better understanding of them. Tiangang sect mainly relies on increasing cultivation to strengthen oneself. All kinds of weapons can be cultivated. Wuxia Palace mainly relies on increasing cultivation to strengthen oneself. All kinds of weapons can be cultivated. Cloud Sword sect mainly cultivates swordsmanship. Man and sword become one. Sword skills are sharp and powerful. Shadowless sect mainly cultivates movement techniques. Its speed is definitely the fastest among all the sections. Just like its name, Shadowless. Gu Taihong introduced the characteristics of the top 10 sects to the cultivators present so that the cultivators would have a better choice for themselves. Every sect had different characteristics. Some sects mainly relied on increasing cultivation to strengthen their strength. The weapon was the cultivator's choice. Some sects mainly cultivated one type of weapon. Most of the time, they only cultivated one type of weapon. Putting all their energy on it, the results would be exceptionally good. After all, most of the time, cultivation was about quality and not quantity. Some cultivators who mainly cultivated swords or other types of cultivators could choose such sections. It was more beneficial for their development. However, mainly cultivating elemental energy was also an excellent choice. Otherwise, these sects would not be so powerful. After hearing the introduction of the top 10 sects, the cultivators had some thoughts in their hearts. They already had the sects that they wanted to join. Compared to the other cultivators' deliberations, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were extremely calm. They had already made their decision. Tiangang sect was their choice. Moreover, Tiangang sect was an extremely powerful existence in the sect. Many cultivators dreamed of becoming a disciple of Tiangang sect. Bailey Hongzhuang's mind was thinking about Limitless Palace. Her master was the Palace Lord of Limitless Palace. Since she had received the inheritance of Limitless Palace, should she go to Limitless Palace? However, she hadn't seen her master yet, so she didn't know the exact situation. She had become the young palace master of Limitless Palace out of nowhere. She had some doubts in her heart. At this moment, she really didn't know what to do. Chapter 1599. Bailey Hongzhuang was the first on the top 100 list. It was not a problem for her to choose to enter Tiangang sect, but they could only choose by drawing lots. What should they do? They had made up their minds to cultivate in the same sect. If they were assigned to different sects, it would be difficult for them to get together in the future. They had been together for so long and had long been used to being together. If they were separated like this was not what they wanted to see. Boss, will we be separated like this? Xia Jiqing's long eyebrows were twisted together. She had made up her mind to be with the boss all the time. If her luck was bad and she was not drawn to Tiangang sect, what should she do? Gong Shaoqing and the others also frowned. As long as they could enter the sect, it was a happy thing for them. However, if they could, they naturally hoped that they could still be together. Hearing Xia Jiqing's words, Bailey Hongzhuang recovered from her thoughts. It shouldn't be, Beichen will have a way. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. They were the team representing Tiangang sect to participate in the assessment competition. The elders of other sects would understand. As long as Di Beichen said a word, they should be able to enter Tiangang's sect. After all, they could represent Tiangang's sect to participate in the assessment competition, which proved that they were the internal cultivators of Tiangang's sect. Thinking about this situation in the assessment competition, the elders of other sects would also understand. Now, the top 10 cultivators on the top 100 list, which sect you choose to join, stand in front of the corresponding sect elder. Gu Taihong said. Following Gu Taihong's words, the top 10 cultivators all moved forward. Only they had the opportunity to make such a choice. Many cultivators' eyes fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. They did not know which sect Bailey Hongzhuang would choose to enter. Just as the cultivators were choosing, suddenly, above the high platform, a golden figure jumped down and walked directly into the crowd. Looking at the golden figure, the cultivators present were all astonished. On this high platform, Di Beichen was the most eye-catching. Now that Di Beichen made such a special move, they were really curious about what he was going to do. What is young sect master Di doing? When Gu Taihong saw Di Beichen suddenly jump off the high platform without saying a word, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes. Looking at Gu Taihong's puzzled look, the Yun family's elder smiled and said, "Young sect master Di's fiancé is also participating in the assessment competition. He should be going to fetch his fiancé now." As soon as he said this, the elders on the high platform had a look of understanding in their eyes. Di Beichen was at the peak of his youth, so it was normal for him to pick up his fiancée who was participating in the assessment. Looks like the engagement between young sect master Di and Miss Han is going to be held soon. The Yun family's elder sighed. However, when the Yun family's elder mentioned Miss Han, an elder could not help but be puzzled. I heard that young sect master Di's fiancée is not Miss Han, but Miss Bailey. The Yun family's elder frowned. How is that possible? Aren't young sect master Di and Miss Han a match made in heaven? Chapter 1600. For a moment, many of the elders present talked about Di Beichen. After all, as the young sect master of Tiangang's sect, Di Beichen's affairs had always been very eye-catching, not to mention his marriage. Tiangang's sect didn't hide Bailey Hongzhuang's affairs, so those who wanted to find out would know the result if they asked carefully. Although everyone thought that Han Xiling and Di Beichen were a match made in heaven, it was obvious that Di Beichen didn't think so. After hearing a series of words from the crowd, the Yun family elder realized that he really wasn't well informed. Miss Bailey? Could it be Bailey Hongzhuang, who is ranked first on the top 100 list? The Yun family elder asked curiously. As the Yun family elder's voice fell, all the elders present were stunned for a moment. They didn't pay much attention to this question before. I'm not sure about this. I only know that her surname is Bailey, but I can't remember her name. Everyone was helpless. In fact, they only knew about Di Beichen's marriage as an interesting matter. In their opinion, Di Beichen would eventually be together with Han Xiling. Now, everything was just a farce. With his identity as the young sect master of Tiangang's sect, it was absolutely impossible for him to find a woman with no background to be his fiancée. Di Beichen walked all the way into the crowd, towards the figure that he missed day and night. In the past 2 years, he missed her all the time, and now, Bailey Hongzhuang finally appeared in front of him safe and sound. The cultivators in the crowd looked at Di Beichen in confusion, not understanding why he suddenly walked into the crowd. The woman standing in front of Bailey Hongzhuang had completely fallen into madness. She stood there blankly, not knowing what to do. Oh my God, the young sect master is walking towards me. I said before that the young sect master was smiling at me, but you didn't believe me. He must have fallen for me. In the vast sea of people, he discovered my existence with a single glance. The woman's face was filled with an excited smile. She had always thought that there would be a day when such a perfect man would fall in love with her. However, she didn't expect this scene to come so suddenly, which made her feel even more surprised. When the surrounding female cultivators heard her words, the envy and jealousy in their eyes gradually deepened. They just couldn't understand what was so good about this girl. Why did young sect master take a fancy to her? Xia Jiqing and the others were completely speechless after seeing the woman in front of them so proud and happy. This person really knew how to put the blame on herself. Di Beichen was clearly looking at boss, okay? Di Beichen was walking over to welcome boss, alright? What does this have to do with you? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen slowly walking over, and the smile in her eyes gradually spread. The spring breeze rippled, and her heart was slightly warm. Di Beichen slowly walked in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, but found that a woman had been standing in the same place, between him and Hongzhuang. He couldn't help but frown. The woman looked at Di Beichen excitedly. Her Prince Charming really came in front of her. As long as she was with Di Beichen, her identity would be different from the past. However, just as the woman was about to approach Di Beichen suddenly bypassed her. Bypassed her. Chapter 1601. The cultivators who were originally envious of the woman were no longer envious after seeing this scene. Instead, they couldn't help but laugh at her. She really knows how to daydream. She doesn't know how to look in the mirror to see what she looks like. How could the dignified young lord of Tiangang's sect take a fancy to her? Some people are just whimsical, thinking that she is the only one who is different from the rest in the world. The face of the woman who was laughed at also became extremely ugly. She quickly turned around, wanting to know who Di Beichen was looking for. Di Beichen stood in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. His deep and bright eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. His doting and joy almost overflowed. Wife. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a beautiful smile. Her delicate and perfect face was even more beautiful at this moment. Yes. 2 years of longing seemed to have dissipated at the moment of meeting. All of this had disappeared when they saw each other. Just one look from him was enough to melt everything. They didn't even need to say anything else. Just by staring at each other, they already knew. Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. After not seeing her for 2 years, Hongzhuang became even more beautiful. There was a trace of heroic spirit between her eyebrows, less immature, and more determined in her eyes. She just stood quietly in the crowd, and her existence was unforgettable. She was always so eye-catching, so bright, so elegant, and so refined. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled at Di Beichen. In 2 years, Di Beichen's figure became more and more tall and straight. He really looked like a handsome and impeccable perfect prince. She could feel that Di Beichen's aura was thicker and sharper. Compared to the past, it undoubtedly gave people more pressure, but it made no difference to her. When Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang stared at each other, the surrounding cultivators were already dumbfounded. Bailey Hongzhuang was the leader of Tiangang dynasty, and they all knew about it. However, what did Di Beichen call Bailey Hongzhuang just now? Wife. Bailey Hongzhuang was Di Beichen's wife. Didn't that mean that Bailey Hongzhuang was the wife of the young lord of Tiangang sect? When this thought appeared in everyone's mind, everyone was completely dumbfounded. They never knew that Bailey Hongzhuang actually had such an identity. This was too shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang is actually the wife of Tiangang Zong's young lord. Her identity is very extraordinary. Bailey Hongzhuang's hidden identity is really too deep. With such a great identity, why would she still participate in the exam? No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is so powerful. Fortunately, I didn't offend Bailey Hongzhuang. Otherwise, I'll really have a hard time in the future. After the cultivators of Qinrun dynasty and Myriad Cloud dynasty saw this scene, their feelings were also very complicated. Previously, they already knew the identity of Bailey Hongzhuang, but now when they really saw this scene, they couldn't help but feel shocked. The cultivators of Qinrun dynasty couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the leader had led them to apologize to Miss Bailey. Otherwise, they would really be in big trouble. Dong Hongyun sighed faintly. At first, he thought that Han Shiling's identity was very extraordinary. Now, he knew that compared to Bailey Hongzhuang, it was nothing. Chapter 1602. Tiangang Dynasty. I've never heard of this name before. Bailey Hongzhuang is also the wife of Tiangang sect's young sect master. This name, could it be that they randomly came up with it? It was unknown which cultivator voiced out his conjecture. All the cultivators present were stunned for a moment, and the look in their eyes gradually changed. The name Tiangang Dynasty was extremely famous in the assessment competition, but in reality, no one had ever heard of the name Tiangang Dynasty. Now that it was linked to Tiangang sect, they felt that it was really possible that it was fabricated. No wonder Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Shiling would fight. This means that they are love rivals. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's ability is much stronger than Han Shiling, and now it seems that she is very compatible with Di Beichen. This is a real match made in heaven. Stop dreaming. Originally, the extremely proud lady had already understood when she saw Di Beichen stop in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. It turned out that Di Beichen wasn't smiling at her at all. It was only because she happened to be standing in front of Bailey Hongzhuang that she had misunderstood. From the beginning to the end, Di Beichen was looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, and all her fantasies seemed especially laughable at this moment. Compared to this lady, the crowd of cultivators felt much better when they saw that the other party was Bailey Hongzhuang. After all, Bailey Hongzhuang's results were outstanding enough, and they were unable to reach her. The human heart was like this. When the lucky person was someone who was similar to you, your heart would always be unbalanced and would be jealous, resentful, and unconvinced. But when the other party became someone who was unreachable, everyone would only feel envious and feel that it was natural. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang was like this in their eyes. She was too outstanding, and they couldn't be jealous at all. In the next moment, Di Beichen directly pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into his arms under the crowd's shocked gaze. Suddenly being hugged by Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Her clear eyes were filled with a trace of astonishment, and her body was somewhat stiff. Feeling the familiar warmth and fragrance in his body, Di Beichen only felt that his heart, which had been numb for the past 2 years, had finally started to beat again. "You're back, it's great." In the end, she had returned to his side safely. Just like 2 years ago, nothing had changed. Hearing the voice that was filled with longing, Bailey Hongzhuang's slightly tensed body relaxed, and the affection in her eyes became gentler and deeper. "I said, I'll return safely." 2 years ago, she had promised that she would return safely and return to his side. And he had promised that he would come to pick her up and never let Hongzhuang's wishes. After 2 years of separation, the feelings between them had never faded. On the contrary, with the passage of time, this feeling had become deeper and stronger. Even though they were on different sides, they had never questioned the feelings between them. Even though they had never contacted each other, their hearts had never been separated. From the moment they decided to be together, they had already been together in life and death. Xia Jiqing and the others looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who were hugging each other, and their faces showed a happy smile. Speaking of which, the feelings between Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were deeply admired by them. Chapter 1603. In the distance, Mo Yinjue watched as Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang hugged each other tightly. A storm swept through his deep eyes, but his expression did not change in the slightest. Just as he had expected, Di Beichen's heart towards Bailey Hongzhuang remained firm and unwavering. It was because of their firm hearts that he clearly knew that he had no chance. The cultivators behind Mo Yinjue did not understand why their young master had returned like this. Based on their young master's excellence, not many people in this world could compare to their young master. However, when they saw that the other party was Di Baichen, their expressions changed. This was because Di Baichen was definitely one of the few people in the Xingxian continent who could compete with their young master. They had never expected such a situation to occur. The probability of such a thing happening was simply too small. They never thought that things would be so coincidental that their young master and Di Baichen would fall in love with the same woman. However, after thinking about it carefully, everyone understood. Based on their young master's personality, ordinary women would never be able to enter his eyes. Naturally, a woman who could enter their young master's eyes would not be an ordinary person. When Di Baichen also fell in love with Bailey Hongzhuang, they finally understood how outstanding Bailey Hongzhuang was. Mo Yinjue remained silent. Hongzhuang was such a good woman, Di Baichen would definitely cherish her and not let her go. When the elders on the high platform saw Di Baichen embrace a woman in white in front of everyone, they were completely stunned. Di Baichen's actions were so open and aboveboard. This proved that Di Baichen was not just in love with this woman in white. As the young master of the Tiangang sect, Di Baichen would always attract attention no matter what he did. Now that Di Baichen treated this woman in such a high-profile manner, it was enough to see his intentions. Many of the elders present had seen Han Xiling before. Naturally, they could tell at a glance that the woman Di Baichen was hugging was not Han Xiling. Looks like you guys were right. That woman really isn't Han Xiling. The elder of the Yun family sighed faintly. It seemed that he would have to pay attention to these matters in the future. Fortunately, he did not make a fool of himself this time. That woman in white should be the woman that young sect master Di brought back to Tiangang sect, right? From the looks of it, he seems to be extraordinary as well. Looks like it's really impossible between young sect master Di and Miss Han. For a moment, all the elders looked curiously at Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang. They were really curious about what kind of woman could make Di Baichen so interested in her. Di Baichen had always been a genius cultivator in everyone's eyes. In addition to his extraordinary status, he was a well-known figure in the Xingxian continent. They believed that Di Baichen's taste would not be bad. They were even more curious about what kind of charm Bailey Hongzhuang had. Just as the elders were guessing the identity of the woman in white, Cheng Hefeng and Yu Junfei below the high platform were completely dumbfounded. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be the woman that the young sect master of the Tiangang sect liked. With this identity alone, it would be a simple matter to kill them. Thinking about the situation when they threatened Bailey Hongzhuang, they could not help but break out in cold sweat. What kind of existence did they offend? Chapter 1604. Bailey Hongzhuang is actually the fiancé of Tiangang sect's young sect leader. Yu Junfei was secretly speechless. He had never expected such a situation. Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was actually so honorable. They had even offended Bailey Hongzhuang previously. Tiangang dynasty isn't a small dynasty at all. It's a team that represents Tiangang sect in the assessment competition. Cheng Hefeng's gaze kept changing. Previously, he had already guessed that Tiangang dynasty might be related to Tiangang sect. However, he didn't think too much about it. He only felt that this possibility was very small. They never thought that the final result was a result that they couldn't have guessed at all. For a moment, they only felt that Fang Wenqing's death wasn't a loss at all. If Fang Wenqing was still alive, they were afraid that the following situation would be even more painful for him. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but worry about themselves. After all, they had threatened Bailey Hongzhuang. Although they chose to leave in the end, they didn't form any good karma. If Bailey Hongzhuang held a grudge, as long as Di Baichen gave the order, then they would really have a dead end. Although they came from a large dynasty and their family had a certain amount of power in the large dynasty, it couldn't be compared to Tian Gang's sect at all. However, there was no use for the two of them to be upset. They could only rely on the following days to think of a way to resolve it. Di Beichen slowly let go of Bailey Hongzhuang. A devilish smile appeared on his handsome face. "Wife, let's go over." Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay. As long as Di Beichen was by her side, she felt that her heart had never felt so stable before. As long as he was here, she didn't fear anything. Di Beichen directly pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and slowly walked towards the high platform. After seeing this scene, the surrounding cultivators all opened up a path. Their gazes landed on Bailey Hongzhuang. Other than envy, there was only envy. How many men in the world were as outstanding as Di Beichen? Moreover, Di Beichen was so infatuated and sincere to her. It was really a blessing that could only be cultivated for 1,000 years. How many people couldn't find such a good man in their lifetime? Bailey Hongzhuang followed Di Beichen all the way forward. It didn't take long for them to reach the high platform. Di Beichen turned around and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. "Wife, wait for me below the stage. I still have some things to do." This time, he replaced the Grand Elder to recruit cultivators. Later, he would need to draw lots, so he could not leave for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "It's okay, I understand." Di Beichen's eyes were filled with a smile. Then, his figure flashed and he appeared on the high platform again. All the elders' gazes were fixed on Di Beichen. Di Beichen's actions today were really unexpected. "Young sect master Di, this lady in white is your fiancée?" Gu Taihong asked with a smile. Di Beichen nodded slightly and said without hesitation, "That's right." Listening to Di Beichen's affirmative answer, everyone began to understand one after another. They were afraid that the day of their wedding was not far away. Everyone looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and saw Bailey Hongzhuang standing in front of Di Beichen with an indifferent expression. A gentle breeze blew and her white dress fluttered in the wind. An otherworldly and ethereal aura spread out, giving people an indescribable sense of comfort. Chapter 1605. Everyone nodded secretly. In their opinion, this lady in white was also a beautiful lady and she didn't look any worse than Han Xiling. However, they didn't know the talent and strength of this lady in white. If she only had looks, then she was still extremely incompatible with Di Beichen. Gu Taihong glanced at the cultivators standing in front of him. There were exactly 10 of them including the lady in white. However, this lady in white was young sect master Di's fiancée. She shouldn't be in the top 10 of the top 100 list, right? Are the top 10 of the top 100 list here? Gu Taihong asked. Yes. The 10 cultivators said in unison. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang also responded, the surprise in Gu Taihong's eyes deepened. The group of elders also understood that young sect master Di's fiancée was also one of the top 10. When everyone thought of this, they couldn't help but be stunned for a moment and turn to look at the top 100 list. In the top 10 of the top 100 list, only Bailey Hongzhuang had the surname Bailey. Young sect master Di's fiancée also had the surname Bailey. In that case, Bailey Hongzhuang, who was ranked first on the top 100 list, was young sect master Di's fiancée. As this guess appeared in everyone's mind, everyone was stunned. They didn't expect young sect master Di's fiancée to be so powerful. For a moment, the elders felt bitter in their hearts. They originally wanted to win Bailey Hongzhuang over to their sect, but now it seemed that there was no chance at all. Recruiting the fiancé of Tiangang sect's young sect master to their sect? Wasn't this a joke? Everyone sighed faintly. It was rare for such an outstanding seedling to appear, but they didn't expect their hopes to be completely destroyed. They didn't feel good in their hearts. Compared to the depressed elders of other sects, Gu Taihong was dumbfounded. The palace master sent him to the assessment to bring the young palace master back, but what was the situation now? The palace master didn't tell him that the young palace master was the fiancé of Tiangang Sek's young sect master. How was he going to bring the young palace master back now? However, on second thought, Gu Taihong admired the palace master's foresight more and more. The palace master left an inheritance in the assessment competition. The successor found was not only the first place of the assessment competition, but also the fiancé of the Tiangang Sek's young sect master. With all these conditions added together, Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was already extraordinary. In this way, if Bailey Hongzhuang really took over Limitless Palace, it would not be unacceptable. However, what should he do in this situation? Gu Taihong's gaze fell on Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Miss Bailey, I am Elder Gu of the Limitless Palace. Do you want to come to our Limitless Palace?" After much consideration, Gu Taihong could only ask for Bailey Hongzhuang's opinion. Originally, in his opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely choose Limitless Palace, but he didn't expect such a situation to happen. Even if he couldn't bring Bailey Hongzhuang back, he had to remind Bailey Hongzhuang. Following Gu Taihong's words, everyone present, regardless of whether they were elders or cultivators, looked at Gu Taihong in confusion. The situation couldn't be more obvious, yet Gu Taihong still asked such a question. Wasn't this unnecessary? Chapter 1606. As soon as these words came out, the cultivators present were all dumbfounded. Bailey Hongzhuang will definitely choose Tiangang sect, but the elder of Limitless Palace actually tried to recruit her. This is really strange. Bailey Hongzhuang's performance is so excellent. It is normal for the elder of Limitless Palace to want to recruit her, although it is useless. AI, Bailey Hongzhuang is really famous this time. The elders of the major sects are all trying to recruit her. If only I had such treatment. A group of cultivators sighed. This kind of treatment was not something ordinary people could get. They could only be envious. Xia Jiqing and the others were also surprised after seeing this scene. The major sects were all trying to recruit her. This was what they had guessed before, but that was before everyone knew about Hongzhuang's identity. Now that everyone knew that Hongzhuang was Di Beichen's fiancé, Limitless Palace still continued to recruit her. This was very interesting. Boss is really amazing to have such results. Xia Jiqing smiled. Dongfang Yu smiled slightly. I have a good impression of this elder of Limitless Palace. Yes, if we hadn't already set a goal, Limitless Palace would have been a good choice. Yuan Jixin's face was also full of smiles. It was really not easy for them to come this far. Now that he saw his boss achieve such results, he was also happy. In the distance, Mo Yunjue frowned after seeing Gu Taihong's actions. This situation was a bit strange. As the young master of Shitian Tower, he had a certain understanding of many people in the Xingxian continent. Gu Taihong was an important elder of Limitless Palace, so he naturally had some understanding. According to what he knew, Gu Taihong shouldn't have said such a thing. After all, this kind of recruitment did not have any meaning at all. It might cause Di Beichen to be dissatisfied. With Gu Taihong's smoothness, he would not do such a thankless thing. The only explanation was that there must be something fishy. While no one understood why Gu Taihong was doing this, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. In fact, when she heard the name Limitless Palace, she already understood the situation. Master really sent someone to pick her up. Although Gu Taihong's words were not obvious, she still understood the deep meaning of Gu Taihong's words. However, facing the current situation, she could only reject Gu Taihong's invitation for the time being. She would make a trip to Limitless Palace after leaving the assessment. Elder, thank you for your appreciation, but I choose Tiangang sect now. Bailey Hongzhuang bowed respectfully to Gu Taihong, her voice polite and gentle. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's answer, Gu Taihong understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant. Looks like Bailey Hongzhuang wants to go to Tiangang sect first. It was not that he could not understand such an outcome. With Bailey Hongzhuang's intelligence and wisdom, he believed that she would understand the meaning of his words. When the time came, she should go to Limitless Palace by herself. Thinking of this, Gu Taihong looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with more kindness. He had to say that Bailey Hongzhuang's humble and polite appearance was really likable. He was more and more approving of the palace master's choice this time. A young person who could satisfy the palace master would not be a simple person. Chapter 1607. Listening to Gu Taihong's words, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "Thank you, elder. If there is a chance, I will definitely visit." The eyes of the elders of the top 10 sects wandered between Gu Taihong and Bailey Hongzhuang. They only felt that Gu Taihong was very special to Bailey Hongzhuang and was unusually kind. They had dealt with Gu Taihong on weekdays, but they rarely saw Gu Taihong treat a cultivator so well. Facing the doubts and guesses of the elders, Gu Taihong acted as if he did not hear them and said, "Since the top 10 cultivators on the list have made their choice, then the rest of the cultivators can start drawing lots to decide which sect they belong to." As soon as these words came out, the elders of the top sects also recovered their serious look. Since there was no hope of recruiting the first place, they also hoped that this time the sects could recruit some disciples with good strength. "The cultivators on the list, please come to the front of the high platform." Hearing this, Gong Shaoqing and the rest of the cultivators on the top 100 ranking walked forward, looking nervous. In their hearts, they all had the sects they wanted to go to, but this was decided by drawing lots. This was completely a matter of luck. Among the top 10 sects, there was only one sect that they wanted to go to the most. This meant that they only had a 10% chance, which was very difficult. Xia Jiqing's heart was nervous. She did not want to be separated from the boss like this. The elders of the top 10 sects had obviously already prepared for the drawing of lots. The lots for the 11th to the 100th place had been placed in the box, waiting for them to draw lots. Based on the number they drew, the corresponding cultivator would be their sect's disciple. This situation was completely based on luck, but it was also a very fair choice. From the 11th to the 100th place, there was naturally a big gap in strength and cultivation talent. If they were lucky, it was possible to draw a cultivator who was very close to the top, but if they were unlucky, they could only draw a cultivator who was at the bottom. The elders of the top 10 sects looked at each other. This time, the results would depend on this moment. However, just as the elders of the top 10 sects were preparing to draw lots, Di Beichen's voice suddenly sounded. "Elders, I have a matter that I hope you can make an exception for me." Di Beichen's voice was magnetic and reasonable. His humble appearance was full of respect for the elders. Hearing Di Beichen's words, all the elders said, "Young sect master Di, please speak." As the young master of Tiangang sect, Di Beichen's status was naturally higher than these elders. The fact that he could speak to them so humbly and politely already made them feel flattered. Naturally, they would not have any objections. The cultivators of this team from the Tiangang dynasty represented my Tiangang sect in the assessment competition back then. Therefore, I wonder if the elders can agree to let them join the Tiangang sect together. Di Beichen had a humble and polite smile on his face. This request was actually very normal, so he was not worried that the elders would disagree. As expected, after hearing this, the group of elders all agreed. Of course, that's not a problem. In fact, their sects also had internally selected cultivators, but the situation of each sect was different. Some selected cultivators did not need to prove their results at all. As long as the assessment was over, they could join the sect. Chapter 1608. After seeing that all the elders had agreed, the smile on Di Beichen's lips widened a bit. Speaking of which, the performance of Xia Jiqing and the others had also exceeded his expectations. They had used their own achievements to prove their potential. He believed that in the future, they would become more and more powerful in Tiangang's sect and have a promising future. He had always understood the relationship between Xia Jiqing and the others and Hong Zhuang. If they could all cultivate in Tiangang's sect in the future, he thought that his wife would be very happy about it. The cultivators of Tiangang dynasty will now stand directly in the team of Tiangang's sect. Gu Taihong's voice resounded in the central square and clearly passed into the ears of every cultivator. Xia Jiqing and the others, who were originally very worried about this matter, after hearing this sentence, their worries completely dissipated. The situation was much better than they had imagined. Di Beichen has really prepared everything, we don't need to worry. Xia Jiqing cheered. She didn't want to be separated from the boss, and now she could finally rest assured. In the future, they could all stay in the same sect and cultivate together and grow together. Fortunately, Di Beichen explained this point, otherwise we really can't stay in the same sect. Gong Xiaoqing's cold face was covered with a rare smile. Everything that happened today was great news for them, and it was really delightful. Di Beichen is our big lucky star. Xia Jiqing smiled. Along the way, Di Beichen had helped them a lot. Although Di Beichen had helped them because of the boss. If it weren't for Di Beichen, they wouldn't have been able to participate in the assessment competition together. If it weren't for Di Beichen, they wouldn't have been able to enter the same sect. Tiangang sect, among all the sects in the Xingxian continent, Tiangang sect was a famous existence. From this moment on, they were already cultivators of the famous sects in the Xingxian continent. Their identity would become completely different from before, and it could really be said that they would bring glory to their ancestors. Compared to the excitement of Xia Jiqing and the others, the faces of the remaining cultivators on the list became very ugly. A total of 90 cultivators were divided into 10 sects, which meant that each sect would only send out 9 people. Now that the cultivators from the Tiangang dynasty had already occupied 6 spots, it meant that there were only 3 spots left. The chances of entering the Tiangang sect were even smaller. One had to know that Tiangang sect was also a sect that they yearned for. Many cultivators hoped that they could become a cultivator of Tiangang sect. Originally, there were 9 quotas. At least 1 out of 10 cultivators could become a cultivator of Tiangang sect. But now, after this incident, their hopes were almost cut off. However, no matter how dissatisfied everyone was, they had no choice but to pray that they were one of the 3 lucky ones. When Di Beichen saw the 2 unfamiliar faces of Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin, a hint of surprise appeared in his eyes. Obviously, Yuan Jixin and Yuan Xiaoman had joined Hong Zhuang's team later. He had never seen these 2 people before. The elders drew lots very quickly. Not long after, the 90 cultivators had been allocated to their respective locations. This time's assessment competition was considered to have come to an end. Chapter 1609. With Gu Taihong's words, some of the young cultivators present were happy, while others were sad. The cultivators who became disciples of the sect as they wished were naturally overjoyed. Their return this time was really glorious. Their relatives, their families, and even their dynasty would be proud of them. They would be famous and become the idols and goals of the cultivators in the dynasty. As for some cultivators who did not succeed in getting a ranking, they were a little sad. They came here full of confidence, but in the end, they did not get any results. However, at least they were alive to participate in the assessment competition. In the past 2 years, their cultivation had also improved a lot. All in all, they had gained a lot from this trip. Among all the cultivators present, only 1 cultivator had been standing in the same place, unable to get rid of the shock. This person was Bailey Haoxuan. He could not believe that the crippled prince he had been ridiculing was actually the young lord of Tiangang's sect. When he noticed Di Beichen on the high platform, he was already dumbfounded. In his eyes, those people on the high platform were unattainable people, people he would never be able to touch in his life. However, Di Beichen was in that group of people. This news was a huge shock to him. Tiangang's sect, what kind of powerful sect was that? As the young lord of Tiangang's sect, Di Beichen's identity and status were not what they could imagine. At this moment, he finally understood why Shenyuan Huan knelt to Di Beichen, and why the emperor and empress were also trembling in fear when facing Di Beichen. It turned out that Di Beichen's identity was so amazing. Such an existence, with just a casual order, Fengbo country would be turned into nothingness. However, he did not understand why Di Beichen, with such a noble identity, would appear in Fengbo country and become the prince of Fengbo country. No one explained to him, he could only secretly guess in his heart. Looking at Di Beichen holding Bailey Hongzhuang's hand, he understood that Bailey Hongzhuang's identity was also so unattainable. Bailey Hongzhuang had become Di Beichen's wife and the young lord's wife of Tiangang's sect. This was too shocking, right? Shenyuan Huan's heart was also very bitter. With such a noble identity like Di Beichen, he still cherished Bailey Hongzhuang so much. Compared to him, what was he? At that time, he had humiliated Bailey Hongzhuang in every possible way. Speaking of which, he was really stupid. The top 100 cultivators in the assessment competition can now be called disciples. You will have a 3-month holiday when you enter the sect. Gu Taihong smiled and didn't say anything else. The competition had already come to an end. The cultivators cheered. They had worked hard in the assessment competition for 2 years and had been suppressed for 2 years. Now, they were hoping to have a holiday to let them relax. They felt excited at the thought of the 3-month holiday. However, what happened next caused the elders of the various sects and aristocratic families to be flabbergasted. Chapter 1610. Seeing this scene, Di Beichen and the others all had a strange look in their eyes. They already felt that it was very strange for the cultivators of Shitian Tower to appear in the assessment competition this time. However, after they arrived at the small world, they had been silent. Although everyone felt that it was very strange, they didn't say much. Now that they heard the words of the cultivators of Shitian Tower, they also reacted. It turned out that the young master of Shitian Tower was also participating in the assessment competition. After everyone knew this, their hearts became even more intense. Although they had never seen the young sect master of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion, the young sect master of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion had always been famous. He was also a very powerful existence. Why would he want to participate in the assessment competition? Isn't this too strange? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes changed a little, and a guess gradually emerged in her mind. In the next moment, under everyone's astonished eyes, a group of black figures flew over from afar and appeared on the high platform. However, these black-clothed people all had their faces covered, and it was impossible to see their faces clearly. With the appearance of the leader of the black-clothed people, the cultivators of Shitian Tower knelt down and said, "Greetings, young master." The black-clothed people raised their right hand slightly, and the cultivators of Shitian Tower stood up one after another. Di Beichen's eyes that were as deep as the sea flashed with a stream of light. It seemed that his judgment was not wrong. The young master of Shitian Tower was indeed participating in the assessment competition. However, looking at the figure of the young master of Shitian Tower, he felt that it was somewhat familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. With the appearance of the black figure, Bailey Hongzhuang recognized at a glance that this person was Mo Yinjue. Even though he had never revealed his true appearance, his figure and his characteristics had never been hidden. They had been teammates for so long, and they had been together for so long. Naturally, she had a certain understanding of him. Mo Yinjue's gaze also fell on Bailey Hongzhuang. The two of them looked at each other. Mo Yinjue did not reveal anything, but directly withdrew his gaze. Gong Xiaoqing and the others were also surprised when they saw Mo Yinjue. They also recognized Mo Yinjue. They had been together for so long that they could tell who he was just by looking at his back. Before, they had been wondering why Mo Yinjue suddenly disappeared and gave all his points to Hongzhuang. At this moment, they had completely understood. Shitian Tower was a very extraordinary existence in Xingxian continent. Although they had always been very curious about Mo Yinjue's identity, they had never thought that Mo Yinjue would be the young master of Shitian Tower. Xia Jiqing couldn't help but open her mouth wide. Mo Yinjue's identity was so powerful, they had no idea before. It's no wonder that Mo Yinjue was not afraid of the dynasty and directly stood to save them. It turned out that Mo Yinjue was such a powerful existence. Mo Yinjue was such a powerful existence. With his identity as the young master of Shitian Tower, it was not difficult to stop the actions of the royal family of the Qing Shao dynasty. After Di Beichen noticed the expressions of Gong Xiaoqing and the others, his gaze fell on Mo Yinjue again. At the same time, Mo Yinjue also looked at Di Beichen. When the two people's eyes met, Di Beichen was shocked. He immediately recognized Mo Yinjue. He had to admit that when he was in the Qing Shao dynasty, Mo Yinjue had left a deep impression on him. This man had always been very aggressive, and he had never hidden his feelings for Hongzhuang. Chapter 1611. From the first time he saw Mo Yinjue, Di Beichen knew that Mo Yinjue liked Hongzhuang. His eyes were sharp, with a trace of competition and alertness. He had never concealed his feelings for Hongzhuang. Then, in the conversation with Mo Yinjue also bluntly said all this. He had also investigated Mo Yinjue's identity, but Mo Yinjue's identity was hidden very well, leaving no clues. From that moment on, he already knew that Mo Yinjue's identity was not simple. With his methods, he could not investigate Mo Yinjue's true identity, which was enough to prove that the strength behind Mo Yinjue was not weaker than him. However, he did not expect that Mo Yinjue would be the young master of the Shitian Pavilion. In the Xingxian continent, the Shitian Pavilion was a very special existence, and the reputation of the Shitian Pavilion's young master was extremely resounding. The only difference was that the young master of the Shitian Pavilion had never shown his true face, so no one knew what the young master of the Shitian Pavilion looked like. Even if he appeared in front of you, you would not recognize him. Mo Yinjue's identity was not what surprised him the most. He was surprised that Mo Yinjue would come to participate in the assessment competition. Almost immediately, Di Beichen already knew the purpose of Mo Yinjue's participation in the assessment competition. He came for Hongzhuang. With Mo Yinjue's identity, there was no need for him to participate in the assessment competition. It could be said that no one in the assessment competition was his opponent. Then, the answer was obvious. If not, Xia Jiqing and the others would not have recognized Mo Yinjue at a glance, and their expressions were so surprised. Di Beichen and Mo Yinjue's eyes became sharp almost at the same time, and countless sparks of collision spread, but only the two of them knew. The tactile feeling between rivals was always obvious. Soon, Mo Yinjue took the lead to withdraw his gaze, and looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang, and then disappeared from the assessment competition with the cultivators of the Shitian Pavilion. The elders on the high platform were also puzzled after seeing this scene. The cultivators of the Shitian Pavilion rarely spoke, and even if they met, they would not greet each other. They had long been accustomed to this. However, what they did not understand was why the young master of the Shitian Pavilion would appear here. The young master of the Shirtian Pavilion actually participated in the assessment competition. This is really a strange story. With his strength, there's no need to participate in the assessment competition. Is there anything special about this assessment competition? I don't know. The people of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion have always had strange characters. This is the first time I have seen the young master of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion. The elders shook their heads one after another. The Shirtian Pavilion was already famous for being a maverick, so they didn't take it to heart. Xia Jiqing and the others stared blankly at Mo Yinjue and the others leaving, but they did not say anything. Because the shock in their hearts was too great, they could not believe that the teammate they had been with for so long was actually the lord of the Shirtian Pavilion. They could naturally think of the problems that others could think of. Mo Yinjue did not need to participate in the assessment competition at all. With his identity, it was impossible for him to be excluded by the cultivators of the Qianfeng dynasty. He deliberately joined their team, walked all the way until now, and finally gave all his points to Hong Zhuang, and now left without saying a word. Chapter 1612. Very quickly, Dong Xiaoqing and the rest understood. There was only one reason Mo Yinjue did this, for Hong Zhuang. From the beginning to the end, Mo Yinjue spent 2 years, wasted 2 years, and everything he did was for Hong Zhuang. At this moment, they finally understood why Mo Yinjue suddenly left. It was impossible for him to join Tian Gang's sect. Presumably, Mo Yinjue should have told Hong Zhuang this before he left yesterday. Thinking of this, everyone sighed in their hearts. Just from everything Mo Yinjue did, they could tell that Mo Yinjue truly liked Hong Zhuang. Unfortunately, Hong Zhuang already had Di Beichen, so there was no more chance. Regarding this, everyone could only feel that it was a pity. As for Mo Yinjue leaving so cleanly, they felt even more admiration. It seemed as long as Di Beichen wasn't by Hong Zhuang's side, Mo Yinjue would appear. He was like a flower protector, and when Di Beichen came, he would leave. But it was this kind of sacrifice and no request that made them even more amazed and impressed. How many people in this world could do this? Dong Fengyu's expression was very complicated. He knew that he couldn't do what Mo Yinjue did. Putting aside his identity, background, and status, everything he did couldn't be compared to Mo Yinjue or Di Beichen. With Mo Yinjue's noble status, he was willing to stay by Hong Zhuang's side as an ordinary cultivator. From the beginning to the end, he didn't ask for anything. This kind of sacrifice, who could do it? Master, Mo Yinjue left just like that. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed with a complicated light. It also didn't know what Mo Yinjue said to its master last night. But seeing Mo Yinjue leave just like that, it felt a little stifled in its heart. Don't think about it. It's best that he left. Di Beichen is the right man for master. Xiao Bai said. It admired Mo Yinjue, admired his determination. He knew what was best for master. To be honest, it liked Mo Yinjue, but Di Beichen's feelings for master weren't littles at all. The most important thing was master's feelings. Baisher was silent and did not speak. He was very clear that his master liked Di Beichen. No matter how much Mo Yinjue did, no matter how touching it was, their master's heart would not change. It would only make them sigh. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was complicated, but it quickly returned to normal. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand. His deep and charming eyes stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, filled with deep love and tenderness. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a bright and beautiful smile. Perhaps she was selfish. Her heart only had room for one person. Let's go. Di Beichen turned to look at the cultivators behind him and said. Hearing this, everyone nodded. They couldn't wait to leave the small world. In the next moment, everyone rushed out and left the small world. Under Di Baichen's lead, everyone appeared in the Tiangang sect's territory through the transportation array. Because every assessment competition was organized by the 10 great sects, there was a transportation array at the exit of the assessment competition that led to each sect. Chapter 16:13. Listening to Di Baichen's words, everyone nodded and couldn't help but look at Tiangang sect behind them. Just looking at the majestic Tiangang sect, everyone's heart couldn't help but be excited. After so many years of struggle and hard work, now they were finally going to become a member of Tiangang sect. Thinking of this, they felt that their bodies were filled with inexhaustible energy. They just wanted to roar out loud to vent their inner ecstasy. Di Baichen had a faint smile on his face, and then handed the map to everyone. The route to Tiangang sect is drawn on the map, but this route can only be seen by you, do you understand? Understood. Everyone responded in unison. The news of your selection will soon be sent back to your respective dynasties, and the rewards of Tiangang sect will also be sent over. Presumably, before you arrive, these things have already arrived in advance. After working hard for 2 years, you can now relax for a while. If there are no doubts, you can leave now. With Di Baichen's voice falling, everyone's faces showed a happy smile. Thank you, young sect master. Everyone respectfully bowed to Di Baichen. Young sect master, goodbye. Speaking of which, their luck was extremely good. Other sects had elders come to greet the new disciples, but Tiangang sect's young sect master came in person, which was a very rare thing. All of this was because of Bailey Hongzhuang. In any case, as long as they went back and said that they had seen the young sect master of Tiangang sect, this was a supreme glory. Soon, the cultivators left one after another, leaving only Bailey Hongzhuang's group in the same place. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and smiled at Xia Jiqing and the others. Everyone has to go back to their respective dynasties to have a look. Now everyone is a hero. Xia Jiqing and others had smiles on their faces. As Hongzhuang said, they were really famous when they went back. The assessment competition was over, and their families must be waiting for their news. This time when they went back, it was really a glorious return. Boss, what about you? Xia Jiqing couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I have no need to go back. Now that she had nothing to do with Fengbo country, there was no need to go back. In the past 2 years, she had been worried about her parents. She didn't know how her parents were doing now. She just wanted to ask Di Baichen about the specific situation later. Now that she had returned from the assessment competition, her strength had improved a lot, but there was still a big gap to compete with the Lan family and Yu family. Gong Shaoqing and others looked at each other. They were also very clear about Hongzhuang's situation in Fengbo country. Since they had already broken their relationship, there was no need to go back. Let's go back to the college together. No matter what, we are still students of the Azure Water School. Now that we are about to become sect disciples, we should go back and take a look. Dongfang Yu suggested. The reason why they were able to gather together and walk together until now was because of the Kanglan school, that the sect. As hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and others' eyes lit up. The principal and mentors of Kanglan College had always been very good to them. During the college tournament, the vice principal directly withdrew from the 3 major colleges for them. Chapter 16:14. When they left, the situation of the Kanglan College was not good. After all, the Kanglan College had always been known as the 3 major colleges with the other 2 colleges, and its reputation was very strong. But after the relationship with the other 2 colleges was severed, the state of alliance naturally did not exist. With the despicable actions of Lingyin College and Beihai College, they would definitely slander the Kanglan College. As a member of the Kanglan College, they naturally did not want such a thing to happen. Now that they had passed the assessment and become disciples of the Tiangang sect, they believed that they could also contribute to the college. Dongfang is right, why don't we go back to the college together? Xia Jiqing smiled. At the beginning, the principal had asked them to go back to their respective dynasties to try to get the opportunity to participate in the assessment. Since they followed He Mu to the Tiangang sect, they had not sent back any news. Now that all this was over, they should go back and explain. Looking at everyone's happy appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but turn to look at Di Beichen and ask Di Beichen for his opinion. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang tenderly and said, "If you want to go, then go back and see." "What about you?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked. After 2 years of separation, they finally met again today, but now they were going to be separated again. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang's lovely expression, Di Beichen chuckled and said, "Where you go, I will naturally go." He had missed Hongzhuang for so long, how could he bear the taste of separation again? In the past 2 years, he had always wished that he could stay by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. After tasting the pain of missing, he regretted that he should have participated in the assessment with Hongzhuang. At the beginning, he also had such an idea, but he still had a lot of things to do in the outside world. He needed to check the news. Only in this way could Hongzhuang be more at ease when she returned. Now he just wanted to stay by Hongzhuang's side and was not willing to be separated for a second. With Di Beichen's voice falling, a playful smile appeared on the faces of Xia Jiqing and the others. "Oh," everyone deliberately dragged out their words and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen ambiguously. Noticing everyone's gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed a little, revealing a hint of shyness and helplessness. However, Di Beichen put his arm around Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and looked at the crowd calmly. "Hongzhuang is my legal wife. We are open and aboveboard." Seeing this, everyone felt helpless. It had to be said that Di Beichen, as the young sect master of Tiangang sect, had a thick skin. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her head and looked at Di Beichen. The smile in her eyes deepened. After 2 years, Di Beichen's character hadn't changed at all. "Since it's decided, let's set off now," Di Beichen said. "All right. Let's go. Let's go back." Everyone looked relaxed. In the past 2 years, they had never been so relaxed. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and walked all the way forward. It seemed that he was unwilling to let go. Bailey Hongzhuang could feel Di Beichen's emotions. She also held Di Beichen's hand. Chapter 16-15. They had watched Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen walk all the way to the present. 2 years had passed, but the feelings between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had not changed at all. It could be said that their love was stronger than gold. They had also seen many people who could not endure the time. They had a change of heart after not seeing each other for a while. Such things were common, and all kinds of reasons could lead to their separation. Because they watched Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen being so firm together, they were full of blessings and envy. He Mu also walked together with Xia Jiqing and the others. With the young master and young madam together, he did not need to worry at all. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang also knew what everyone was thinking, but they did not refuse. They had not seen each other for 2 years, and they did have a lot to talk about. After everyone disappeared from sight, Di Beichen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang and asked with a smile, "I haven't seen you for 2 years, did you miss me?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes, only to see Di Beichen's handsome, angular face rippling with a trace of a smile, demonic and bewitching. Looking at Di Beichen like this, Bailey Hongzhuang deliberately said, "I don't miss you." Di Beichen's eyes changed a bit, you really don't miss me? Bailey Hongzhuang looked to the other side, nodded and said, naturally. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt a force hit her. She stepped forward uncontrollably and fell directly into Di Beichen's arms. You don't miss me, but I miss you. Di Beichen's gentle and affectionate voice sounded in Bailey Hongzhuang's ears. His warm breath made Bailey Hongzhuang's ears itch. Those affectionate words hit her heart directly, making her heart soften in an instant. The days when you're not by my side feel like years. Di Beichen revealed his inner thoughts. In the past 2 years, he had been thinking about Hongzhuang all the time. Now that Hongzhuang had returned, he felt an unprecedented joy in his heart. At the same time, his feelings were complicated. He didn't know what Hongzhuang had experienced in the past 2 years, and Mo Yinjue's sudden appearance had also made him wary. After all, Mo Yinjue was also an outstanding man. In the Xingxian continent, he and the young master of the Heavenly Slaughter Pavilion had a resounding reputation. Sometimes, they were even called the two heroes. However, many people did not know who the young master of the Heavenly Slaughter Pavilion was, so his reputation was even more resounding. The Heavenly Slaughter Tower's young master had also done some praiseworthy things, but one was in the light while the other was in the dark. If Mo Yinjue was not the Heavenly Slaughter Pavilion's young master, but the young master of some other force, he would be someone who received a lot of attention. However, he wasn't going to ask Hongzhuang this question. He only wanted to tell Hongzhuang how much he had missed her in the past 2 years. Facing such a serious and affectionate Di Beichen, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart melted. Her hands gradually wrapped around Di Beichen's back. The familiar fragrance from Di Beichen's body made her relax. In the past 2 years, my mind has been tense most of the time. Only when I miss you do I feel the most relaxed. I don't know what has changed in 2 years, but I'm glad that you haven't changed. Chapter 16:16. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichen's arms around Bailey Hongzhuang gradually tightened, tightly hugging Bailey Hongzhuang, as if he wanted to melt her into his bones and blood. Feeling the change in Di Beichen's strength, Bailey Hongzhuang also tightly hugged Di Beichen. Only in this way could they deeply feel each other's tension and longing. I should be glad that you walked into my life. Wife, you are a gift from the heavens. Di Beichen reached out and rubbed Bailey Hongzhuang's soft silky hair. Since Hongzhuang walked into his heart, he only had her in his heart. There are thousands of weak water, but only one ladle can be taken. His wife was so different, thousands of women couldn't compare to her. To him, Hongzhuang was the most special existence in the world. Once, he felt that being forced to go to Feng Bo country was the most frustrating time in his life. At that time, he was so frustrated. He didn't want to admit that he would never be able to stand up again. He kept looking for a way to cure him, but the results disappointed him again and again. In the face of Xianyuan Huan, Xianyuan Jing and the others' ridicule and sarcasm, he didn't even have the thought of resisting. His will was once depressed, but in the end, he even gradually accepted reality. Even if he really couldn't stand up again, he didn't allow himself to be depressed. And Hongzhuang was the miracle of his life. When he first saw Hongzhuang, he only felt that this woman was really interesting. He clearly saw Hongzhuang throw Xiao He and Xiao Bai out in order to save him. To tell the truth, he stayed in Feng Bo country for a long time. Xianyuan Huan and the others teased him countless times, but no one said a word for him. And Bailey Hongzhuang was the first. The sun shone on her body, and her delicate little face was filled with a proud and sly light. It was because of this that he wanted to tease Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang's reaction was just as he had expected. It was really interesting. With his financial resources, it was impossible for him to go back on his word. However, he wanted to go back on his word to Hongzhuang. After that, he had walked step by step. His heart had been perturbed. How could a cripple like him be together with Hong Zhuang? However, he never thought that Hong Zhuang could help him stand up. From the moment they met until now, he felt that everything was arranged by the heavens. Bailey Hong Zhuang's lips curved into a happy smile. It's good to see you again. That's great. Thousands of words turned into this one sentence. It's so good to have you. Whenever she was in danger, she would worry about what would happen if something really happened to her and she couldn't make it out of the competition. When she thought that Di Beichen was still waiting for her outside the competition, her heart felt an indescribable pain. Therefore, she tried her best to persist. This was her biggest belief. When she was trying to break through the 99th step of the celestial stairway, the terrifying power crushed her body and mind, and Di Beichen was the driving force for her to support herself. Di Beichen listened to Bailey Hong Zhuang's words. His deep eyes became brighter, and the smile on his lips gradually rose. Hong Zhuang, I love you. Di Beichen's eyes showed a deep affection. He loved Hong Zhuang more than anyone else. Bailey Hong Zhuang hugged Di Beichen tightly. She missed this hug so much. Xia Jiqing and the others were walking in front. They were very happy, and the smile on their lips couldn't be controlled. Chapter 16-17. When I return to the Xingxian continent, although it is still a forest in front of me, there is a familiar feeling. Xia Jiqing's face was filled with a happy and comfortable smile. She was worried that she would never come back, but now that she saw everything in the Xingxian continent again, there was an indescribable excitement. Listening to Xia Jiqing's words, Dongfang Yu and the others couldn't help but nod. Their feelings were the same as Xia Jiqing's. In the past 2 years, they had always had their heads tied to their waists. If they weren't careful, they could lose their lives. Now that they could relax, the feeling was naturally very good. The biggest difference between here and the small world is that there won't be a large group of demon beasts here, so I feel a lot more at ease. Bai Junyu said with a smile. It was also a forest, but the number of demon beasts here was much smaller than in the small world. Walking in the small world, they would be attacked by demon beasts almost every once in a while. Their mental strength was always tense, guarding against any demon beast that might attack at any time. Under such a tense mental state, they naturally didn't feel good. In the Xingxian continent, as long as they didn't enter the demon beast mountain range, such a situation wouldn't happen. Now they had the mentality of going on a scenic tour. This kind of relaxation was really too comfortable. Compared to everyone's emotions and excitement, Gong Xiaoqing's thoughts were different. The spirit energy in the small world is much richer than here. Cultivating here, the speed of improving strength is a lot slower. Hearing Gong Xiaoqing's words, everyone couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Then they all laughed and said, Gong Xiaoqing's mind is really only filled with cultivation. If it was an ordinary person, they would feel extremely happy in such a situation. Only Gong Xiaoqing was different. Speaking of which, cultivation occupied most of Gong Xiaoqing's mind. Xiaoqing, we are already out of the small world. The major sects have given us 3 months of rest. You should relax. Dongfang Yu patted Gong Xiaoqing's shoulder. He was really helpless towards his brother. When he first met Gong Xiaoqing, he was like this. After all these years, there really hadn't been any changes. Dongfang is right. I think Miss Lu must still be waiting for you at the college. You should think about it. Bai Junyu said with a smile. Lu Qinyue's love for Gong Xiaoqing was in everyone's eyes. To be honest, with Miss Lu's conditions, to be able to firmly like Gong Xiaoqing was really true love. One must know that in the entire Canglan city, there were countless people pursuing Miss Lu. Xia Jiqing nodded slightly, Miss Lu is really infatuated with love, you can't let her down. As a woman, she also hoped that Lu Qingyue, who was so affectionate, would have a good ending. After all, by Junyu, by sizes as loses Lu, s lose of the colleges lose s by's colleges use with lose, he's lose. After Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin heard the conversation between Xia Jiqing and others, they couldn't help but ask, who is Miss Lu? Chapter 16-18. Hearing this, Yuan Xiaoman and Yuan Jixin immediately understood and immediately looked at Gong Xiaoqing with ridicule in their eyes. From the time they met Gong Xiaoqing until now, Gong Xiaoqing had always had a cold appearance, unapproachable. If they hadn't been in contact with Gong Xiaoqing for a long time and understood that he was a very good person, they wouldn't have known. If it was an ordinary person, just looking at Gong Xiaoqing's unapproachable appearance, they would have retreated. However, it had to be said that Gong Xiaoqing and Dong Fangyu were very charming men. In the days of the assessment, there were many women who admired them. Just by looking at their eyes, it could be seen. Fortunately, female cultivators weren't as exaggerated as male cultivators, they were more shy and shy. Therefore, Dong Fangyu and the others never had conflicts because of such things, but Hong Zhuang was often harassed by such things. I didn't expect that there was always someone waiting for Xiaoqing outside. You have to cherish it. Yuan Jixin said with a smile. Looking at Boss and Di Beichen's appearance, he also had an indescribable shock and envy in his heart. If one day he could find such a other half, it would be an extremely happy thing. 2 years had passed and they were not young anymore. If it was an ordinary family, they would have already married or had children. It was only because they were cultivators that they were a little late. However, seeing that cultivators of the same age already had someone they loved, they also felt envious. Yuan Xiaoman couldn't help but look at Bai Junyu. She only felt that it was time for her to express her feelings to Bai Junyu. After being together for so long, she was very clear about what kind of person Bai Junyu was. She was a very proactive woman. When she met someone she liked, she would bravely pursue them. If Bai Junyu didn't make a move, then she didn't mind confessing. After all, it wasn't a good thing to maintain this state. Back then, during the assessment competition, because there was danger everywhere, things like romance were naturally put aside. Now that they had successfully returned to the Xingxian continent, this kind of thing could be put on the journey. Gong Xiaoqing's expression was slightly complicated. Although everyone told him this, his feelings for Qingyue hadn't reached that point. He had always treated Qingyue as his younger sister. It was precisely because of this that they had never gotten close to each other despite being together for such a long time. He didn't want to hurt Qingyue. If his feelings for Qingyue weren't love, then even if he got together with Qingyue, it would only hurt Qingyue more. Obviously, no one knew what he was thinking, and he didn't want to say more. Most of the time, no matter how outstanding a woman was, no matter how good she was to you, if you didn't have feelings for her, she would still be a younger sister. He didn't want to disappoint Qingyue. At the very least, he had to be sure of his own feelings so that he could be responsible for Qingyue. Everyone saw that Gong Xiaoqing had sunk into silence, so they didn't say much on this issue. I really didn't expect that Mo Yinjue would actually be the young master of the Heaven Slaughter Pavilion. This is too shocking. Yuan Jixin sighed. In the past, I have always admired the Heaven Slaughter Tower. They wander in the darkness and their information network is extremely terrifying. There is almost no one that the Heaven Slaughter Tower cannot kill. Chapter 16-19. Yuan Jixin had heard about the Shitian Tower before. Compared to the unattainable reputation of the major sects, they had heard more about the Shirtian Tower. This was because the Shirtian Tower accepted all kinds of tasks. No matter who you wanted to kill, as long as you could pay a sufficient price, they would help you complete it. No matter what you wanted to inquire about, as long as you could take out enough chips, they could help you inquire about it. It was precisely because of this that although the reputation of the Shirtian Tower was not very good, and those who had contact with the Shirtian Tower would not say it out loud, they had to admit that the information network and means of the Shirtian Tower were indeed shocking. He could not believe that not only did he know the young master of the Tiangang sect, but he had also been teammates with the young master of the Shirtian Tower for such a long time. Thinking of this, he had a feeling of disbelief. Yeah, I always thought that Mo Yunjue was very mysterious, but I didn't expect his real identity to be even more mysterious. Xia Jiqing sighed. She had never expected this result. Mo Yunjue's identity was so powerful. Originally, she thought that although Mo Yunjue was very good, he could not be compared with Di Beichen. Now she knew that Mo Yunjue and Di Beichen were on the same level. It was just that one was in the light and the other was in the dark, so they were not clear enough. She really admired the boss. The boss was really not an ordinary woman. Whether it was Di Beichen or Mo Yunjue, they were all legendary figures, but they both had deep feelings for the boss. If it were any other woman, as long as one of them liked her, it would be enough to make her happy. In fact, this kind of legendary figure could only be imagined in their dreams. In reality, it was impossible for them to meet him. However, all the way to the present, the boss was a miracle maker. Everything that was impossible had happened to Big Boss. Mo Yunjue has left this time. I'm afraid I don't know when we'll meet again. Bai Junyu sighed faintly. Mo Yunjue was also a good friend in their hearts. However, this time, Mo Yunjue had left so suddenly and so decisively. Even though they already knew the reason, they still felt disappointed. Gong Xiaoqing and Dongfang Na looked at each other. Their feelings were very complicated. From the time they met Mo Yunjue in the Qing dynasty until now, all the developments made them understand the reason. They believed that Hong Zhuang didn't know about this at all. Just like them, Hong Zhuang only found out about this after the assessment. Thinking about it, Hong Zhuang would be even more shocked. Let's not discuss this matter anymore. Gong Xiaoqing said in a low voice. The relationship between Hong Zhuang and Di Beichen was good. They didn't want to hear something that they shouldn't hear to affect their relationship. He Mu, who was hidden in the darkness, had already heard everyone's words clearly. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Young Madame's charm was truly boundless. The pressure on young master wasn't small either. Thinking about it, He Mu was relieved. Just by looking at young Madame's feelings for young master, he could see that she was wholeheartedly devoted to young master. There was no need to worry. After all, young Madame was a strange woman in the world. If not, young master would not be so infatuated with young Madame. Chapter 1620. Hearing Gong Xiaoqing's words, Xia Jiqing and the others also reacted. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were behind them. Although there was nothing between Hongzhuang and Mo Yunjue, it was not good if Di Beichen heard it. They didn't want to affect the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. They only hoped that they would always be together. You all go back to the college together. My brother and I have to go back to the snow country first. Yuan Xiaoman said slowly. Bai Junyu and the others were all students of the college. It was normal to go together, but they were not students of the college. Naturally, there was no need to go together. Do you want to go to the college with us to play? Xia Jiqing asked with a smile. Yuan Jixin waved his hand and said, You go, we won't go. Our family must be waiting for us to go back. Hearing this, Xia Jiqing and the others nodded, their faces showing a look of understanding. They had been out for so long, their family must be very worried. It was good to go back early. What's more, the snow country was much farther than them, and the time spent on the road was much longer than them. They were afraid that even if they went to the college and went back home, they would be about the same time as Yuan Jixin and the others. If Yuan Jixin went to the college with them, then they wouldn't have much time to stay at home. That's right, we should go back early to tell our family the good news. Bai Junyu said with a smile. Yuan Jixin's face was full of smiles. He had been out for 2 years, and he missed his family very much. Presumably, his family was also anxiously waiting for them to go back. He didn't feel much when he didn't go out before, but now that he had been out for so long, he felt how good it was to go home. He believed that his family would never have thought that he and Xiao Man would achieve such results. In the entire snow country, only he and Xiao Man survived. He believed that the royal family would definitely meet them. With all these things added up, he and Xiao Man would be very busy after going back. Yuan Xiaoman couldn't help but look at Bai Junyu. They wouldn't be able to see each other for 3 months, but in this situation, going home was naturally the most important. Not long after, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen caught up with them. Bailey Hongzhuang asked with a smile, "What are you guys talking about so happily?" Xia Jiqing turned her head and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and a sly light appeared in her eyes. "We were just talking about what you were whispering behind us." Hearing this, Dongfang Yu and the others couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Xia Jiqing. Jiqing was becoming more and more naughty. In comparison, Di Beichen was much more indifferent. He had always been so open and aboveboard, but in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes, he was just thick-skinned. Di Beichen only took Bailey Hongzhuang's comment as a compliment. After all, if he wasn't thick-skinned, how could he have directly abducted Bailey Hongzhuang? Looking at Di Beichen's unashamed appearance, Bailey Hongzhuang was completely helpless. She was completely helpless against Di Beichen. Seeing this, Xia Jiqing and the others laughed even more happily. For a long time, it had been others who couldn't do anything to Hongzhuang. It was rare to see Hongzhuang's helpless appearance. Speaking of which, Di Beichen was still the most powerful. Chapter 1621. When Bailey Hongzhuang and her party happily went to Kanglan College, Tiangang sect's great elder Han Hongyi stood on top of Tiangang sect, anxiously looking at them. The assessment competition was over, and Di Beichen personally went to recruit cultivators. Logically speaking, she should have come back by now. However, he waited for a long time and didn't wait for Xiling to come back. He couldn't help but feel anxious. Tiangang sect's cultivators looked at Han Hongyi's appearance and knew that Han Hongyi was waiting for Han Xiling to come back. In fact, they were very curious about whether Han Xiling's performance or Bailey Hongzhuang's was better in this assessment competition. This matter had always been the focus of everyone's attention. Although other cultivators would not come to Tiangang sect immediately, Han Xiling was a cultivator of Tiangang sect. As long as the assessment competition was over, she would definitely come back. At that time, they would know the final result. At the beginning, the conflict between Han Xiling and Bailey Hongzhuang was very big. Everyone knew that they would compete in the assessment competition. Thinking about it, whoever's performance was better, whose voice would be louder, and the possibility of becoming the young lord's wife would be greater. After all, to be the young lord's wife required at least a certain amount of strength. If Bailey Hongzhuang's performance was not good, it was believed that everyone would oppose the young lord to be with her. No need to guess, it must be that Han Xiling's performance is better than Bailey Hongzhuang's. Han Xiling has been cultivating in the sect these years. Whether it is cultivation resources, experience, or vision, it is far better than Bailey Hongzhuang from an ordinary dynasty. If Han Xiling doesn't win, it doesn't make sense at all. That's not necessarily true. Bailey Hongzhuang's performance in the assessment array is very outstanding. Who among us can have a better performance than her in the assessment array for the first time? So what? Regardless of whether Han Xiling did better than her in the first assessment, at least what Bailey Hongzhuang can do, Han Xiling can also do. As everyone knew, Han Xiling had many opportunities to enter the assessment array. Her conditions and the resources she enjoyed were superior to Bailey Hongzhuang's. This was an indisputable fact. After all, there was no such thing as absolute fairness in this world. I think highly of Bailey Hongzhuang. Her words and actions are domineering enough, and she's open and aboveboard. I believe in young sect master's foresight. For a moment, the crowd of disciples had different opinions. However, most of the cultivators stood on Han Xiling's side. It wasn't that they didn't think highly of Bailey Hongzhuang, but the gap between Bailey Hongzhuang and Han Xiling was too big. Almost all of the cultivators looked down the mountain. Logically speaking, the time should have arrived, and the results should have been known by now. As time gradually passed, Han Hongyi's brows gradually furrowed. He didn't know why, but he had a bad premonition in his heart, which made him anxious and on tenterhooks. It was because of this that he didn't wait in the hall, but stood outside to wait. Even though he had a bad premonition, Han Hongyi's rationality told him that there shouldn't be any problems at all. The other elders were also curious about the final result of the assessment competition. Hence, they all came to Han Hongyi's side. They were also curious about the cultivators who had been recruited in this assessment competition. Chapter 1622. Every time during the assessment competition, the elders of the top 10 sects would be very aggressive in recruiting outstanding cultivators. The assessment competition was a very valuable competition held by the top 10 sections. Most of the cultivators who stood out in the assessment competition had good results. What they were most curious about was who would get the first place in this assessment competition. For the top 10 sects, whoever could get the first place in the assessment competition was a very honorable thing. It's already late, why haven't they come back yet? That's right. The cultivators from the previous batches have all returned. Could there be any problems? Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang has fallen, so young sect master is not willing to come back? Everyone guessed. With young sect master's feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang, if something really happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, then it was normal for young sect master not to come back. Han Hongyi, who was in a bad mood, after hearing everyone's guess, his eyes gradually filled with a smile. If this was the case, then it was not unacceptable for young sect master to come back later. He believed that Shi Ling must have killed Bailey Hongzhuang. With Bailey Hongzhuang's strength, it was impossible to hide. Even if there was a problem in the middle, with the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang's group of cultivators, it was impossible to survive the assessment competition. At this moment, another figure appeared in everyone's sight. Looking at this figure, the disciples present all bowed respectfully. Greetings to sect master. The loud and orderly voice sounded in unison, containing respect and respect for C2 Yen. None of them thought that the sect master would come out personally at this time. Usually, it was very difficult for them to see the sect master. An existence like the sect master would not easily appear in front of everyone. It seemed that the sect master was also very concerned about the results of this assessment competition. After Han Hongyi and the others saw C2 Yen coming, they also bowed and said, "Sect master." C2 Yen waved his hand slightly, motioning everyone not to care. After that, he stood beside Han Hongyi and the others, and his eyes quietly fell down the mountain. However, there were no cultivators at the foot of the mountain. Now that even the sect leader has come in person, we can see how great his influence is. Do you think Sect Master supports young Sect Master or Han Shiling? Sect Master has always been very good to young Sect Master. I feel that Sect Master will definitely support young Sect Master. That's not necessarily true. This kind of thing is not decided by the young master alone. The young master's wife and the young master both represent Tiangang sect. Compared to Han Shiling, many cultivators were secretly disdainful of Bailey Hongzhuang's identity. It was just that if such a woman without any background became the wife of the young master of Tiangang sect, it was really too hard to accept. At least, Han Shiling had been famous since young, so it would be easier for everyone to accept her being together with young sect master. The reason why they could not accept Bailey Hongzhuang was perhaps because they were jealous that they were not as lucky as Bailey Hongzhuang. Sect master, young sect master has not returned until now. I wonder if there is a problem. Qin Ai's eyes were filled with worry, and she could not help but ask. Chapter 1623. There was a worry in Qin Ai's heart. He had never doubted the young sect master's ability, and recruiting cultivators was a piece of cake for the young sect master. However, the young sect master had not returned for a long time. He was worried that something had happened to Bailey Hongzhuang. No one knew what had happened in the assessment competition for 2 years and what Bailey Hongzhuang had experienced. When the young sect master brought Bailey Hongzhuang back to Tiangang sect, he knew that the young sect master had deep feelings for Bailey Hongzhuang. Although the young sect master had never mentioned this matter in the past 2 years, he could tell that the young sect master had always missed Bailey Hongzhuang. In the past, the young sect master did not smile much. It was only after Bailey Hongzhuang came that he noticed that the young sect master smiled much more when he was with Bailey Hongzhuang. After Bailey Hongzhuang participated in the assessment competition, he realized that the young sect master smiled even less, and it was rare to see him smile. He had watched the young sect master grow up, so he knew the young sect master very well. Just from the young sect master's performance, he could tell how much the young sect master liked Bailey Hongzhuang. He really did not wish for anything to happen to Bailey Hongzhuang. The young sect master had always been very sensible since he was young. He cultivated with all his might and was hardworking and outstanding. If there was a woman who could make the young sect master truly happy, he only hoped that the young sect master could be happy. He believed that the sect master had the same thoughts as him. The sect master had always been very satisfied with the young sect master, and he was very assured to hand the Tiangang sect over to the young sect master. Even if the young sect master's wife did not have enough power, he believed that the young sect master could support the entire Tiangang sect. She will be back soon. No expression could be seen on Si Tuyen's dignified face. No one knew that his hands had gradually tightened under his sleeves. Nothing must happen to Bailey Hongzhuang. Right now, he was almost certain that Bailey Hongzhuang was his granddaughter. He had always thought that he, Si Tuyen, was all alone and Di Baichen was his only family. However, he had never thought that not only did he have a daughter, he also had a granddaughter. Furthermore, his daughter and granddaughter had suffered so much over the years and he was completely unaware of it. Now, he only hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang could return safely. He wanted to take good care of Bailey Hongzhuang and rescue his daughter and son-in-law. In fact, his heart was also filled with worry. He already knew what Han Hongyi had done back then, but he didn't expect Han Hongyi to do such a thing with his age and reputation. In order to let his granddaughter, Han Shiling, get everything she wanted, he actually bribed other cultivators to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang. If something really happened to Bailey Hongzhuang, he would never let Han Hongyi off. Han Hongyi, who was anxiously waiting, suddenly felt a strong pressure and killing intent, and his heart couldn't help but tremble. Looking carefully, he didn't know where this feeling came from, and a puzzled light appeared in his eyes. Perhaps it was his illusion. While everyone was waiting, a figure slowly swept up from the bottom of the mountain and appeared in everyone's line of sight. Seeing this figure, Si Tuyen couldn't help but frown. He Ming. Greetings, sect master. He Ming bowed respectfully. As the young sect master's secret guard, he usually only listened to the young sect master. Chapter 1624. Situ Yen raised his right hand slightly, indicating that He Ming was excused. As Di Baichen's secret guard, He Ming had always been by Di Baichen's side. Although Di Baichen had not returned, He Ming must have returned to report something. Han Hongyi and the others' eyes also fell on He Ming, wanting to know what had happened. Why hasn't the young sect master returned yet? Situ Yen asked aloud. Reporting to the sect master, the young sect master has already let the recruited new disciples go back to rest. They will report on time in 3 months. Miss Bailey wants to return to the Kangwon College, so the young sect master also went back with Miss Bailey. The young sect master asked me to report the situation. As He Ming's voice fell, Situ Yen quietly breathed a sigh of relief. As long as Bailey Hongzhuang returned safely, he could rest assured. It was also very good to have Di Baichen by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. In the past 2 years, he had also learned from Di Baichen what Bailey Hongzhuang had experienced over the years. He believed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen would return after going to the Kangwon College, because other places were meaningless to Bailey Hongzhuang. Not only Situ Yen, but Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing also breathed a sigh of relief after hearing that Bailey Hongzhuang was safe. In fact, they were all on the young sect master's side. When the disciples heard that Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive and that the young sect master had accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang back to the Kangwon College, their expressions changed a little. The young sect master really likes Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to go back to Kangwon College, so young master did not hesitate to accompany Bailey Hongzhuang back. Young master has never been so good to Han Xiling. That's right. It seems like Han Xiling can't win against Bailey Hongzhuang. So what if the elders don't agree? Young sect master's heart is with Bailey Hongzhuang. Everyone sighed faintly as they really didn't know what was so good about Bailey Hongzhuang to be able to make young sect master be so dead set on her. For 2 whole years, young sect master's heart had never changed. How envious was that? However, after Han Hongyi heard the news that Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive, his face instantly became gloomy. He couldn't understand why Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive. The original plan was obviously flawless. It was impossible for Bailey Hongzhuang to survive. What went wrong in the middle? Then why hasn't Xiling come back yet? Han Hongyi couldn't help but ask. Even if Di Baichen accompanied Bailey Hongzhuang back to the Kangwon College, then Han Xiling didn't need to go anywhere at all. He should have come back directly at this moment. Why was there no trace of him? Everyone's gazes fell on He Ming. They were also very curious about this. He Ming's eyes changed a little, but the words he said made everyone present completely stunned. Miss Han didn't walk out of the assessment. As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. Some disciples even sucked in a breath of cold air. They couldn't believe what they had heard. Situ Yan's eyes changed slightly. There was a trace of surprise in the depths of his eyes, but it was not obvious. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing were in disbelief. They even wondered if they had heard wrongly. How could such a situation happen? Chapter 1625. Han Hongyi stared at He Ming's face and said, "What did you say just now? Say it again." Seeing this, He Ming continued, "Miss Han did not come back. This is impossible." Han Hongyi immediately refuted. This was simply impossible. With Shi Ling's strength, and Wu Xin and the others had been taking care of Shi Ling, how could there be a problem? What exactly is going on? Si Tu Yen asked aloud. Since Sect Master asked personally, He Ming's answer was more specific. After Sect Master recruited talents in the assessment competition, he did not see Miss Han's trace. Until all the cultivators in the assessment competition left, Miss Han still did not appear. Miss Han should have already perished. Although He Ming used the word should, everyone was already very clear that Han Xiling must have died. Otherwise, Han Xiling would not have appeared until the end of the assessment competition. Did Wu Xin and the others come back? Han Hongyi asked immediately. No. Hearing this, Han Hongyi's face turned pale. He could not believe that Shi Ling would die in the assessment competition. With her reputation and strength, it was impossible for such a thing to happen. Even if Shi Ling's strength was not the opponent's, as long as she said that she was Han Xiling of Tiangang's sect, the general cultivators would not dare to make a move. It was because of this that he was assured to let Shi Ling participate in the assessment competition. Who would have thought that Shi Ling would not come back this time? At this moment, Han Hongyi finally understood why he always had an ominous premonition in his heart. It turned out that the problem was here. The disciples of Tiangang Zone who were present had been completely dumbfounded. They had never thought that Han Xiling would fall in the assessment competition. This result was completely different from what they imagined. Logically speaking, even if Bailey Hongzhuang did not come back, Han Xiling would not come back. However, now that Bailey Hongzhuang came out of the assessment competition safely, Han Xiling would never come back. Wasn't this ending a little too shocking? Oh my god, so Bailey Hongzhuang's strength is stronger? Han Xiling is actually dead. Now no one can compete with Bailey Hongzhuang. In my opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang was just lucky to come out of the assessment competition. Han Xiling must have met a powerful opponent to have an accident. Han Hongyi's face look was extremely ugly. Others did not know what was going on, but he was very clear. Logically speaking, he had already told Shi Ling that when the assessment competition started, she did not hesitate to kill Bailey Hongzhuang directly, so that she would not have any future trouble. However, Bailey Hongzhuang had now returned safely, but Han Xiling had fallen. Was it possible that Bailey Hongzhuang had killed Han Xiling? When this idea appeared in Han Hongyi's mind, even he himself felt that it was impossible. Because Bailey Hongzhuang's strength was not comparable to Shi Ling at all, and the strength of Bailey Hongzhuang's teammates was not comparable to Wu Yuexin and others. This was a sure-win situation. How could there be a problem? Han Hongyi's face became pale. He did not expect that his decision would lead to the death of his granddaughter. Qin Ai and Gu Jingqing looked at each other. They did not know what to say about the situation in front of them. Because all of this was simply too unexpected, you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.